case to be handed down as special grand jury investigation. Grave robbing in Texas is this hour's top news story. An informant led officers of the Muerto County Sheriff's Department to a cemetery just outside the small rural Texas community of Newt early this morning. Officers there discovered what appeared to be a grisly work of art, the remains of a badly decomposed body wired to a large monument. A second body was found in a ditch near the perimeter of the cemetery. Subsequent investigation has revealed at least a dozen empty crypts, and it's feared more will turn up as the probe continues. Deputies report that in some instances, only parts of a corpse had been removed. The head, or in some cases, the extremities removed, the remainder of the corpse left intact. Evidence indicates the robberies have occurred over a period of time. Sheriff Jesus Maldonado refused to give details in the ghoulish case and said only that he did have strong evidence linking the crime to elements outside the state. Area residents have reportedly converged on the cemetery, fearing the remains of relatives have been removed. No suspects are in custody as the investigation at the scene continues.
Hey guys, what's up? Well, I didn't mean to stop it, just pause it. Anyways, hey, what's up? Welcome to the chill stream. Hi. Hello? Okay, there we go. It's good to hear. Hey there. How do you say that? Oh. Okay, Lynn. Oakley. I don't know how you say that, but hi there. First time chatter. Why'd I get the laughing face? Alright. Like I said, welcome to the Saturday chill stream. Sorry, my voice still sounds funny from this cold. Stuck some ibuprofen for my sore throat. Had to get some more cold medicine tomorrow. I'm at that point where I don't feel sick other than I've got like that snot in the back of your sinuses and you keep having to spit and my throat's a little sore and that's about it. So anyway, let's get on with this chill stream, shall we? Where is it? Here we go. Alrighty then. Boop. Hello? Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. Alrighty. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this going.
So a while ago, I did a ranking of the top 20 worst adapted heroes in the Fox X-Men universe, and now it's finally time to do the villains. What in the good goddamn gravy took so long, you ask? Well, there was some behind-the-scenes complications related to, Old Ship Bay Opryke Ames Clay from the Etards Ray at Entryth Tway Entry Say Oxbay a Vision Day at Isney Day. But that's all cleared up now, with me as the victor, and everything's good. So, let's finally continue going full steam ahead and ranking the worst of the worst adapted in Fox X-Men universe. Now, there were some pretty poorly adapted heroes, as you saw in the last list, with many being dissimilar to their supposed comic book source material that you were left both scratching your head and banging it violently against a wall in utter rage. But the villains? Whoo boy! They make some of the lowest ranked MCU villains look like they walked straight off the comic page. And by again using the best there is at what it does 3C system, I've rated every single villain adapted from the comics into the movies of the X-Men franchise, and then ranked them from the most to least similar, quarantining off the bottom 20 least well adapted to take a look at today. With the goal, as always, to see if adapting a character well leads to better, more popular characters, or if it just doesn't matter at all and there are merits to taking massive liberties. But what are these mysterious 3Cs, you ask? Well, those would be costume, character, and continuity. Costume ranks a character's outfit or costume, their overall look, and their superficial physical characteristics. Character ranks their personality, their relationships with others, and their powers or abilities. And continuity rates their origin story, their iconic moments, and their overall place in the world, universe, or timeline. And as always, disclaimer, a character's ranking on this list is not a comment on if they're a good or bad character, only how close or similar they are to their comic book source material compared to other characters on this list. And as we go through this list, feel free to play along and say who you think is going to be the absolute worst in the comments, and then we'll see if you were right, with evidence that you ain't lying about it. So with that out of the way, let's start the countdown with the villain who ranked at number 20 of the worst adapted Fox X-Men villains, starting with Omega Red. In comics, Omega Red is an incredibly powerful and dangerous threat. He was originally a serial killer in the Soviet Union, who eventually joined the Russian military. During that time, he continued assaulting and murdering young girls until he was caught and executed for his crimes. But due to a latent mutant gene, he survived the execution and is taken to become part of a Russian super soldier program. His mutant abilities to heal from injury, as well as his ability to emit deadly pheromones that can kill in seconds, were augmented by years of experiments and cybernetic enhancement. He gained gained massively increased levels of strength, speed, and durability, and powerful retractable tentacles coming out of his arms. These tentacles were made of carbonadium, an incredibly durable yet malleable radioactive metal that was constantly slowly poisoning him, forcing him to use those tentacles to drain the life force of other humans to replenish his own, something he was more than happy to do. He wears a special armor that is strong enough to temporarily resist being pierced by Wolverine's claws, and is powerful enough to take on multiple heroes at once and fight Wolverine for hours on end without falling. In the movies, he's just one random prisoner in the background of Deadpool 2. We learn virtually nothing about him, and all we see him do is just yell with the other prisoners as Deadpool is brought into the prison, sit down casually and eat some lunch, and then stand up excitedly while Deadpool and Black Tom Cassidy get into an altercation. They both have chalk-white skin and blonde hair, but the movie version's build is much more average. Like all the prisoners, he wears a power-dampening collar, so we never actually learn his powers in the movies. But we do know that this version cannot have any of the cybernetic augmentations he has in the comics, since his massively enhanced strength, his tendrils and other augmentations, and his violent psychotic personality would not have been suppressed by a power dampener like that, and would make him impossible to keep just casually contained out in Gen Pop like we see him. He's basically just a background cameo. He originally had more scenes, but they all got cut. And I suspect that was because someone pointed out how pissed fans were going to be that such a dangerous, awesome character, who could easily be the main villain of an entire movie, was being done so dirty like this. Moving down to the next least accurate Fox X-Men villain, at number 19 we have Arclight. In the comics, Arclight is Philippa Sontag, a mutant with the ability to generate powerful shockwaves from her hands. She is also sometimes shown to have superhuman strength, with her mutant strength augmented by her incredible muscular training as well. She was a Vietnam veteran who was later recruited as a mercenary into Mr. Sinister's Marauders. When sent to slaughter a community of mutants living underground known as the Morlocks, Arclight and the other Marauders slaughter many of them without mercy. Later, Arclight is killed in battle, but due to Sinister having taken samples of all of the Marauders' DNA, versions of her have been cloned multiple times to serve at his bidding. In the movies, Arclight is a member of the Omegas, a group of mutants who keep away from the rest of humanity, which basically makes them the Morlocks of the movie universe, interestingly meaning that this version of Arclight is pretty much part of the group the comic version was initially sent out to kill. Their personalities are nothing similar, as the comic version is a traumatized veteran violently lashing out at the world, while the movie version is a character who assumedly has some kind of motivation about, mutant rights and the cure. I mean, she's really only here for her powers. We don't learn anything about her.
Yeah.
The comic version is usually portrayed as being quite muscular, while the movie version is absolutely not. Though, I think they kind of tried to adapt this by making the character somewhat androgynous. So, Instead of that unique metal bodysuit she wears, the movie version wears some kind of goth punk rock outfit. But despite all these obvious differences, she serves within a violent group under a powerful and charismatic leader that can project shockwaves from her hands. So, as you'll quickly see, that makes her an absolutely amazing adaptation compared to what we're going to be looking at lower down. Moving down to 18 with Archangel. In the comics, Warren Worthington III was one of the founding members of the original X-Men, going by the codename Angel due to his mutation giving him angel-like wings. After many years of heroics, his wings were severely injured and became infected, and against his wishes they were both amputated, sending Warren into a spiraling depression. The villain Apocalypse reached out to Warren and took advantage of his hopelessness, offering to restore his wings, but during the process also warped both Warren's body and mind to turn him into his thrall, recreating Warren into his Horseman of Death. With these new razor-sharp metallic wings, the brainwashed Warren could fly at much greater speeds, and each metallic feather was laced with a paralyzing toxin that he could shoot out as a projectile. Warren Worthington III is in the movies, but that doesn't matter, since this version of Archangel ain't Warren. Since they randomly decided to keep basing these movies in the past instead of the modern day after Days of Futures Past, the movie Warren would have been like 2 if he was even born yet back in 1983, when X-Men Apocalypse was randomly based. And for the first time ever, the friggin' writers decided they were going to finally start giving a crap about the X-Men timeline here of all places. So knowing that Archangel is an iconic part of...
Yeah, why did they randomly decide to put the Apocalypse storyline in the 80s? That is weird.
Of Apocalypse's Horsemen, but not having access to Angel, they decided to just make up some random new angel-winged character and not even bother to give the guy a name. Because we all know what fans love about these characters is just their power, right? In the movie version, the guy who becomes Archangel is first seen as a mutant cage fighter with angel-like wings in the 80s, who is also very originally named Angel. And during a battle, his wing is severely injured by an electric fence. Looking for the most powerful mutants in the world to serve him, Apocalypse, for God knows what reason, goes to a washed-up cage fighter whose only power is having wings, and he offers to fix his injured wing in exchange for his service. To which Angel agrees when he sees how much stronger he will become. And then he's killed off in the final battle at the end. So, while the comic version of Archangel is a tragic tale of loss and manipulation involving a long-term beloved and incredibly fleshed-out character, the movie version is the story of they wanted that metal wing guy in it and did virtually no work whatsoever to flesh out the new character they made up to fill that role, and then just tossed him in the friggin' garbage when they were done. Their powers as Archangel are mostly similar, though we don't get a lot of time to see the upper limits of the movie version's abilities before he's killed off. And while the comic version has a badass blue and purple costume and corrupted blue skin, the movie version has got your standard black movie jumpsuit with some ugly-ass tattoos on his face to hideously imply the shape of the comic version's mask. Now, I do have to point out, in X-Men 3, Warren isn't ever actually referred to as Angel in the movie. And even in Marvel Comics, he wasn't the first hero to go by that name. So my own continuity nitpicking powers work against me here, stopping me from complaining too much. However, I highly doubt the writers of this movie were trying to reference Angel technically being a legacy name to a hero of past comics, since, let's be honest, we all know the writers of these movies don't know how to read. Down to 17, we've got Lady Deathstrike. In comics, Yoriko Oyama was the daughter of the scientist and crime lord known as Lord Darkwind. He'd created a process for bonding adamantium to bone that, after it was stolen from him, would later be used on Wolverine. Her father was a cruel and abusive man to his children, and eventually Yoriko slew him in revenge. But after a series of tragedies struck her life, she decided to continue her father's work. She took on the costume samurai identity of Lady Deathstrike and eventually led a group of followers to Wolverine. Both her study and to right the dishonor the theft of that research had left on her family name. But after a horrible defeat, she went much further off the deep end and decided she must be augmented to become Wolverine's equal, leading her to allowing herself to receive intensive cybernetic upgrades that turned her into a cyborg living weapon, including adamantium bones and claws that can extend from the nails of each of her fingers, as well as the ability to extend her arms and to quickly heal and repair her cybernetic and organic body parts. And using these new modifications, Deathstrike spiraled further and further into purging all of her rage and grief out on a vendetta against Wolverine and others. In the movies, they like the adamantium nails, and that's about it. This version is a mutant with a healing factor seemingly identical to Wolverine's. We don't know much of anything about her past, but at some point she was taken and experimented on by William Stryker, given the same adamantium bonding process he'd given Wolverine, but also using a mind control serum he developed to keep her completely under his control. She serves as his personal assistant and bodyguard, though we know little about her. When the serum begins to wear off, at one point we see her looking around in confusion, letting us know that she is not in control of or conscious of her actions. But when Stryker reapplies it, she returns to her docile, obedient self. Later, Stryker orders her to kill Wolverine, and after one of the most badass fights in the franchise, she is seemingly killed when Wolverine injected her body with molten hot liquid adamantium that solidified inside of her. She lacks pretty much all of the cybernetic upgrades, specifically the creepy extending arms or any of her comic motivations, and is a mutant, while the comic version is a regular human. And instead of wearing her bizarre samurai getup, she's got the same black bodysuit of every other character in these movies. Now down to 16 with Copycat. Villain is a bit of a strong word for Copycat, but hero ain't the right one either. So since she was originally introduced in a villainous role before being mostly redeemed, just roll with it, cause either way she's nothing like the comics. In both the comics and movies, Vanessa Carlyle was a prostitute who met and fell in love with the mercenary Wade Wilson. But after Wade developed cancer, he leaves her in order to save her from the pain of watching him die. But after this, the movie and comic versions are totally different. In the movies, she is not a mutant, but just a regular human. And after Wade's transformation into Deadpool, they are able to reunite. In the comics, Vanessa is a mutant with the incredibly powerful ability to copy others' appearances and abilities down to a genetic level, able to mimic even their DNA, brain patterns, and powers after extended physical contact. While the movie version goes back to prostitution, the comic version becomes a mercenary after Wade leaves her, and she is eventually hired to infiltrate X-Force by taking the identity of Cable's old ally Domino, being so good at taking on the Domino identity that even Cable and likely Rob Liefeld had no idea who she really was. After serving within the group for a long time, Copycat forms a bond with the team and finds herself unable to fulfill her mission to kill Cable. And much later on, when the real Domino is uncovered, Copycat goes into hiding. Besides not having the comic version's powers, visually they look nothing similar, as Copycat's mutation also alters her natural appearance. And while the movie portrays her and Deadpool being nearly inseparably in love, until Disney got a hold of them. In the comics, their relationship after meeting again is more antagonistic and violent. But they do return to being somewhat more amorous later in life, though nothing like the level seen in the movies. Now down to 15 with Riptide. In the comics, Riptide was a mutant with the ability...
Yeah, I wonder why they decided to go that route with her character. Because I was trying to figure out who she was supposed to be. It was like, is she made up for the movie, or is she a character from the comics? Apparently she is, but they just decided to make her that character in namesake only.
Ability to spin at incredible speeds, allowing him to both suck objects towards him and shoot them out as deadly projectiles. Alongside Arclight, he was recruited into Mr. Sinister's band of mutant mercenaries known as the Marauders. He was a sadistic member of the group, using his deadly power to effortlessly kill innocent mutants at Sinister's order, and severely injuring multiple members of the X-Men. But while sadistically pushing Colossus too far when he was trying to save Kitty Pryde, Riptide was killed in battle. But having secured samples of each of the Marauders' DNA, Mr. Sinister was able to clone a version of Riptide to serve him time and again ever since. In the movies, instead of serving Mr. Sinister, Riptide serves as a member of Sebastian Shaw's Hellfire Club, working alongside him to bring about his plans of nuclear war to kill off humanity and further empower mutant kind. We don't learn a lot about him, since he doesn't talk much, but we can infer that he is committed to the cause of mutant supremacy, since he follows Shaw's plans and immediately after his defeat, joins up with Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants. Though it could be he's just a jerk and likes hurting people like in the comics, but we have no evidence either way, because after this he is never seen again, since no one even remembers him from this movie or cares about him at all. And instead of having his spinning power, the movie version just has generic wind creation powers instead, able to project winds and tornadoes from his hands, allowing him to hurl opponents away, as well as allowing him a limited form of flight. So, besides having long hair and being named Janos, there's not a lot of similarities here. At 14, we move even further down than that with Glob Herman. Glob was a student at the Xavier Institute whose mutation drastically alters his appearance, giving him a translucent, gel-like body that leaves his skeleton and organs visible.
Right?
The substance his body is made out of is highly flammable, though at no apparent harm to himself, and he can detach and throw pieces of the substance at will. He is recruited by his friend and classmate Quentin Quire into the Omega Gang, an anti-human mutant supremacist gang within the school. When a well-known mutant is killed outside of a nightclub, Glob follows Quire and the others into the city to violently attack a group of humans they believed killed him, though the reason for his death is later called into question. The kids later start a riot at the Xavier Institute, violently assaulting Xavier in his office, and tried to rally the other students to their cause, with Glob lighting himself on fire and rushing to attack a bus of human civilians before the X-Men intervene and shut the short-lived attempt at a riot down. This whole arc is a look at the rage and feelings of injustice commonly felt in youth, as well as how often we use those feelings as a justification to vent out our own personal problems on the world and feel justified in doing so. But in the movie, he's just one of the random mutants who runs in and gets shot by the Cure Kid in X-Men 3. We know nothing about him, he's much older, and as soon as he enters the scene, he is shot by the Cure. He's literally only here to show a weird-looking mutant transform into a human. And sure,
we'll just use what's left in there. We'll get some more.
Yeah, you forgot earbuds when you get some.
Yeah, Just use what's in there.
maybe you don't give a crap about his personality and what he represents and all that crap, but they couldn't even be bothered to make him look as cool as he does in the comics. He's just some pudgy guy wearing clothes with slightly translucent skin. Whoop-de-doo. The only reason he's even this high is he does join a riotous mutant group that follows Magneto's ideals with the word Omega in its name. Ooh. And next, it's time. We have him, the character you were all asking about on the worst adapted heroes list, here because it was not his heroic side being adapted at number 13 with, Deadpool.
Oh, no.
Wade Wilson was an assassin and mercenary who developed inoperable cancer. He was offered hope and underwent a procedure to implant a healing factor derived from Wolverine into his body, making him horribly scarred from his cancer, but with a healing factor that would constantly keep it at bay. He covered this scarred face with a mask and returned to working as a mercenary, taking on jobs like finding and killing Cable and others. He uses a variety of guns as well as his 2 trademark katanas, and eventually starts wearing a harness that allows him to teleport. While initially a bit more stoic and serious, over time, either due to the cancer's effects on his brain or just the writers changing him, he developed the humorous, sardonic personality that's made him incredibly popular in the modern day. And in the movies, though they changed some things, they did a pretty good job at adapting Deadpool and his origin story. But as you all well know, we ain't talking about that version. We're talking about the completely unrelated and so hated they just rebooted him version, who appeared much earlier in Wolverine Origins. This version of Deadpool was a mercenary and soldier serving on Team X in the 70s. This version is a natural-born mutant with the abilities of incredibly fast reflexes as well as a healing factor. With his enhanced reflexes,
Well, at least before they experiment on him and turn him into that thing at the end, he was a good adaptation.
somehow allowing him to swing his swords really, really fast and deflect bullets being shot at him by a room full of people, which I assume would also require some form of friggin' super speed. While initially in the comics, Deadpool is a darker, more immoral character than he is now. By the time the movie came out, he developed to having a code and being a lot more nuanced. But in the movie, he's portrayed as a completely unrepentant psychopath, constantly making jokes while the team brutally slaughters a building full of people, smiling when his boss says he's going to kill a village of innocent people, and gleefully chopping those innocent people down moments later. Sometime after the team disbands, Wade is killed by Stryker, and his body is imbued with the harvested DNA of many other mutants. He is somehow reactivated and serves under the direct control of Stryker as Weapon 11. Now, sure. This version doesn't wear a mask, but they did shave his head and sew his mouth shut, making his skin like a freakish mask. And why did they give him Cyclops' laser beams when that has nothing to do with Deadpool? Well, it was a clever way to burn the skin around his eyes off in order to make it look like the black marks on his mask. How clever. And look,
Not
instead of
really.
boring old katanas you hold, they gave him full-length blades that come out of his wrist. That I assume would make it hard to do anything with his arms when they're withdrawn. And you think your modern Deadpools are so good? He doesn't even wear his teleportation device nowadays. Our cool body horror nightmare Deadpool has teleportation abilities grafted onto his DNA as part of this absolute frickin' mess of a character. Who needs a costume, though, when you can just have a shirtless guy with some random lines drawn on his body? And you know that quippy, sardonic personality they had at the beginning of the movie that channels the spirit of the incredibly popular modern version of the character? Well, don't worry. They got rid of that
Good
for
job.
you. This version cannot
No, I
talk.
can read
Just
those
what you want out of a Deadpool. And after a very satisfying and well choreographed green screen fight, this awesome character sadly gets his head cut off and falls to his death. Ah, man. Too bad, man. But don't worry, because if for some reason you waited until
Buds, earbuds.
Oh, that should be a D, not a T.
I'll be fixed.
after the credits of this god-awful movie, you're treated to a special tease of his decapitated head making a weird, creepy little noise, letting the real fans know that this worthless waste of screen time can return in a Deadpool spin-off someday. Oh boy. Just kidding, none of that actually happened. What actually happened was an actual Deadpool traveled back in time and killed that hideous thing before the movie's climax. Phew! That must have all been some kind of horrible nightmare like that Green Lantern movie that thankfully never got made when that annoying guy they were going to have as the star was brutally murdered. Alright, God, enough of that. As many changes as there are to these
Canada.
villains, at least most of them aren't in movies that horrible. So let's move on to an assumedly better movie at number 12 with, oh god damn it, Vuk. In the comics,
What the
Vuk
heck
was
is
an
a
alien
Vuk?
member of the Dabari race who crash landed on Earth. In his
Sounds like
efforts
I'm
to
saying a
escape the
naughty
planet, he
word.
came into conflict with the Avengers. But later on, the Avengers offered to help him fix his ship, and he was able to leave and return home. He later learned, though, that Jean Grey's Dark Phoenix form had destroyed his entire world, leading to the death of most of his species. He then eventually vows revenge and travels back to Earth to kill her. In the comics, the Dabari are a plant-like species, and Vuk's main weapon of choice is a ray gun that can turn those he shoots into stone. In the movie, though, Emma Frost was a high-ranking telepathic member of the Hellfire Club. Jean Grey is manipulated by the Hellfire Club into... Wait, what's that? This telepathic blonde girl who's part of a secret society that manipulates Jean Grey into giving into her darkest repressed desires is not Emma Frost? She's actually that random green alien male who has nothing to do with any of this named Vuk. Oh.
What?
All right, let's try that again. Let's go over his species in the movies then first. All right. So in the movies, the Skrulls are a race of shape-shifting aliens who take the forms of humans across the Earth in a plan to infiltrate... Wait, what's that? The green shape-shifting aliens trying to take over the world in this movie are not Skrulls. Oh, wait, they reportedly were, according to many, many people who saw the original cut of this film, but then huge numbers of reshoots completely retooled them into being a completely different species that does not have the power to shapeshift.
Why?
What the hell have I stepped into here? I am getting confused. All right. Let's just simplify this and be serious. So Mastermind is a member of the Hellfire Club who manipulates Jean with his ability to create illusions. Oh, god damn it. All right, let's try this again. In the movie, the Dabari's home planet was destroyed by the Phoenix
really
Force
confusing.
before it arrived on Earth. In the comics, it was destroyed after it had arrived to Earth and, to keep it simple, let's say, possessed Jean Grey. In the movies, the Dabaris track it to Earth with some kind of incredibly vague plan to somehow harness its power to recreate their homeworld or some crap. While in the movies, Vuk learns of his planet's destruction upon returning to space and just simply vows revenge on Jean like a normal person. In the movies, they have the ability to shapeshift into humans they kill. In the comics, Vuk has worked with other species who shapeshifted, sure, but the Dabari themselves are just not able to do that. That's not a thing. We only get quick glimpses of his true form in the movie, but besides being kinda green, it really looks nothing the same. In the movie, Vuk seems to have whatever random abilities the plot wants her to have, including some vague form of telepathy that allows her to show Jean images and somehow influence her mind towards darkness. Or maybe it didn't have the ability to influence her towards darkness. Maybe it was just horrible writing of her saying, be dark, and Jean giving into that. I don't know. But anyways, it also stops her mind from being read, but does not allow her to actually read minds. And she also has some kind of weird ability to absorb the Phoenix Force from Jean while hugging her, but if the hug gets interrupted, she loses what she absorbed, or maybe keeps some of it. It was kind of vague about that. With all the cuts and reshoots, you think something like this would be important enough to just quickly write a line about it and film a scene for, And like all the other Dabari in this movie, she is superhumanly strong, fast, and agile. And though we never saw what the third act was originally going to be, in the final version of this movie, we see Vuk killed by Jean Grey at the end, with an incredibly deep and unique exchange of, "Your emotions make you weak. No, they make me strong." Wow. Bravo. Well worth nearly a year of delays and at least $10 million in reshoots. I don't use this term often, but peak cinema. The similarities are being greenish, an alien, his planet being destroyed, and targeting Jean, and nothing else. And even that is all just a coincidence. They claimed after this movie was released that this was always meant to be Vuk and the Dabari, and that this was always the plot of this movie. But people have uncovered plenty of evidence that that is total horse crap. This whole section has been a friggin' mess, but so is this movie, so let's just move on down.
Why did it
to
decide
number
to
11.
completely change
Please,
it like that,
please,
though?
please, can I have a good movie with, oh, thank God, Donald Pierce. In the comics, Donald Pierce was the CEO of a mining company as well as a high-ranking member of the Hellfire Club, though he has aims to take control of the group himself. He is a cyborg, with all of his limbs having been replaced with cybernetic replacements that grant him increased strength and other abilities. After coming into conflict with the X-Men, Pierce was defeated and eventually lost his position within the Hellfire Club. Later, he resurfaced alongside other cybernetically enhanced individuals with a grudge towards the X-Men, and put together a new version of the Reavers, a small army of cyborgs with the mission of exterminating all mutants. As time goes on, Pierce becomes more and more consumed with desires of revenge and rage against mutants, and continues to replace more and more of his body with cybernetics, despite how much it makes him feel self-hating and inhuman. In the movies, Donald Pierce works for the Alkali Transigen Corporation as head of security. He leads a group of cybernetically enhanced mercenaries, called the Reavers, to track down the escaped children of the X-23 project for capture and extermination, since they'd all been deemed failures. During his mission, his group faces against Wolverine, and in the end, he is killed by the combined powers of the children he'd been pursuing. He is a ruthless psychopath, willing to torture and kill to achieve his mission. And like the comics, he is cybernetically enhanced, though in the movie that's a much less ambitious just one arm. While the comic version is a leader, the movie version is a follower. While the comic version becomes unhinged and obsessed with revenge, the movie version is much calmer and is pretty much doing what he does because it's his job, though it's a job he seems to really enjoy. And while the comic version has a hatred of all mutants, the movie version doesn't seem to be so passionate. And besides being blonde, they don't really look or dress like each other at all. Basically, the similarities are being a cyborg and leading a team called the Reavers. But, I'll take that over whatever that convoluted crap above me was any day of the week. And here we are,
That's
the top
fine.
10 most poorly
Good
adapted
enough.
Fox X-Men villains, starting with Silver Samurai.
Oh, no.
Kenichi Harada is a mutant with the power to create an energy field that he can channel through inanimate objects, usually focusing it into his katana, granting it the ability to cut through nearly anything
I
besides
already know
insanely durable materials like adamantium. He is the illegitimate son of the Japanese crime lord Shinjin Yoshida, and uses his ability and mastery with the katana as both a criminal and mercenary across the world. When his father is killed in combat by Wolverine, his sister Mariko becomes the rightful heir of Clan Yoshida. Enraged for not being named the clan's heir, and at his sister for falling in love with and planning to marry his father's killer, he returned to try and kill both of them. After facing Wolverine in combat, he was defeated, but his sister asked Wolverine to spare his life and decided to make him her right hand and successor to the clan to try and mend their relationship and restore his honor. In the movie, Silver Samurai is not Kenichi Harada. It is instead a giant mechanized armor made entirely out of adamantium. It was created by the movie original character of Ichiro Yoshida, the grandfather of Marco in the movies, who had met Wolverine while serving in the Japanese Imperial Army during World War II, where Wolverine had saved his life from the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki. After the war, he established the Yoshida Corporation and became incredibly wealthy and powerful. Towards the end of his life, he had Wolverine brought to him to bid farewell, but in actuality, he had become obsessed with the healing abilities he'd seen all those years ago.
What's that?
Can you hold this for me?
Uh-huh.
Don't drop it. If you do,
Was there any ice cream left, or was that it?
ice cream left. There's ice cream left. There's a little bit left.
Well, bring it to me. I'll finish it off.
Okay.
And give me the spoon.
As well as Wolverine's perceived immortality, and had dedicated his life to studying mutations until he'd found a way to harvest them and give them to humans, which he planned to do from Wolverine to himself. He developed the Silver Samurai exoskeleton to both keep him alive and be able to defeat Wolverine and cut through his skeleton to harvest his DNA. But after doing so, he was stopped from murdering Wolverine and gaining eternal life by his granddaughter and his kid. Interesting story that I personally quite like, but absolutely nothing similar whatsoever. The only thing really is him having a relation to Marco, though as a grandfather instead of a brother. The samurai armor, and having a sword that can cut through anything, though for very different reasons. Now, there are people out there who will claim that this is actually a composite character between the original Silver Samurai and his son, who uses a technologically advanced version of the armor to continue the legacy. And though that seems true at first look due to the tech aspect of the armor, in comics the second Silver Samurai was created around the same time this movie went into production, so I find that to be extremely unlikely and think it's just a coincidence. Now down to 9, we got Marrow. Marrow was a young mutant whose mutation caused bones to grow out of her face and body. Due to her appearance, she'd lived underground with the Morlocks from a young age, a community of disfigured mutants who tried to safely live apart from the violence and bigotry of humanity. After a massacre of her people by the Marauders, Marrow eventually wound up living elsewhere under a mutant with a social Darwinist ideology, and was forced to fight and kill in a world where survival of the fittest was all that mattered, eventually rising to the highest ranks of that society. Eventually, she and others escaped and formed a violent anti-human group called Gene Nation, outright slaughtering many humans and coming into conflict with the X-Men. However, later on, due to the guidance of one of her few mentors, she reached out to the X-Men and was able to soften her hateful ways, and even join the team for a time, though she's wavered back and forth between hero and villain many times since. She has the ability to control the shape and strength of those bones, including to create shielding for herself, making them into sharp spears or claws, covering her fists to make impacts stronger, or whatever else she can think of. She can also remove the growths to use as weapons or projectiles, and the bones both outside and within her are much more durable than a regular human's. In the movie, she's just a quick little cameo in Deadpool. We see her as one of the subjects being experimented on in the workshop to activate a dormant X gene. We see her being injected with likely mutant growth hormone and having bones grow from her back. It's just a little scene, but we learn quite a bit about her here that tells us that besides the bones on her back, she's nothing like the comics. For one, instead of her entire backstory of being a disfigured mutant living in seclusion with the Morlocks, this Marrow was a human who'd volunteered for this project for unknown reasons, likely due to some debilitating illness like Wade had, to have her potential dormant X gene activated. Though Marrow has worked with Weapon X for a brief time, and the workshop in the movie is an outgrowth of their Weapon X program, the situation was totally different, and this version has no association with the Morlocks, Gene Nation, or the X-Men. Her bony growths are also a lot less deformed than they are usually portrayed in comics, but she seems to just be gaining her powers here, and they could continue to mutate further. We can also assume that her initial violent personality is completely different as well, since all we see is her docilely sitting there and being injected, and until Deadpool breaks out later, it doesn't seem like there are many other people making problems in the facility. And with what we see of the other subjects, it's also likely that she either died at some point or was recruited into the organization as Ajax and Angel Dust were. So, going from a natural-born mutant who's been forced to flee from humanity to a human who's willingly being injected with chemicals to give her that appearance is a pretty drastic change. And they clearly just picked her because she has a visually distinct power, just like a lot of the mutants in these movies. Just grabbing them up solely for what they look like on the outside to parade them around in the movie like they're achieving anything, but annoying fans of the originals for changing it for no reason whatsoever, while patting themselves on the back for doing so. I guess mutants are a good metaphor for... Anywho, now we're down to 8 with Bolivar Trask. Bolivar Trask is a scientist...
Sorry, what was all that?
Dust were. So, going from a natural-born mutant who's been forced to flee from humanity to a human who's willingly being injected with chemicals to give her that appearance is a pretty drastic change. And they clearly just picked her because she has a visually distinct power, just like a lot of the mutants in these movies. Just grabbing them up solely for what they look like on the outside to parade them around in the movie like they're achieving anything, but annoying fans of the originals for changing it for no reason whatsoever, while patting themselves on the back for doing so. I guess mutants are a good metaphor for... Anywho, now we're down to 8 with Bolivar Trask. Bolivar Trask is a scientist who believes that the rise in mutants is a threat against humanity, so he creates robotic guardians known as the Sentinels to protect mankind. He wrote many articles about the problem posed by mutants and eventually became part of a televised debate on the subject against Charles Xavier. He revealed his Sentinels to the world, but they malfunctioned and turned on both humans and mutants. And after learning that the X-Men were mutants who wished to protect humanity and realizing the error of his ways, he later sacrificed himself to destroy all of the Sentinels. But though he died, his ideas lived on in subsequent Sentinel programs and the desire to both control and exterminate all mutants for years since. And though a lot of the details are changed, most of the initial core idea of Trask is actually adapted fairly well in Days of Futures Past. But that's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about the Trask who was introduced earlier in real lifetime, but like 30 years later in universe, back in X-Men: The Last Stand. This version of Trask is the Secretary of Homeland Security. He works alongside the President and Beast throughout the movie. We don't learn much about him, and we don't know if he harbors any outright hatred for mutants, but he doesn't seem to be that big of a fan of them, and is one of the main people pushing for the weaponization of the newly developed mutant cure. He looks nothing similar, he acts nothing similar, his role in the story is completely different, and he has no connection to Sentinels or any specific anti-mutant rhetoric. It's likely there were tentative plans to have him connected to a Sentinel program in the future, but the franchise fell off a cliff after this movie, and we never really learned much about what happened after in the timeline. And yes, there are those who will claim that this isn't Bolivar Trask, as only his last name was stated in the movie, and that can work in fitting all of this together in retrospect. But at the time, he was clearly meant to be Bolivar, just as the Emma in Wolverine Origins was clearly Emma Frost, despite what they claimed later on. Next down to 7, we've got Viper. Viper, better known in comics as Madam Hydra, is Ophelia Sarkissian, a woman who was recruited into Hydra at a young age, eventually becoming one of the highest-ranking members of the organization, eventually even leading it herself and killing much of the other leadership. After her apparent death, she resurfaced and later killed the previous villain named Viper, taking the name for herself and taking control of a version of the Serpent Society. After they were defeated, she resurfaced in Japan as an ally of the Silver Samurai, and they worked together on many crimes and acts of terrorism around the globe, eventually forming a close bond with him. After Silver Samurai learned that his sister had been named the heir of Clan Yoshida, he headed back to Japan to kill her, with Viper agreeing to aid him, though they were opposed by Wolverine and the X-Men. She is a nihilistic, violent professional mercenary and terrorist who has led entire organizations and sometimes kills for little to no reason. She's fought against
wait a minute.
What you reading?
Where's she at? Oh, wait a minute.
She resurfaced in Japan as an ally of the Silver Samurai, and they worked together on many crimes and acts of terrorism around the globe, eventually forming a close bond with him. After Silver Samurai learned that his sister had been named the heir of Clan Yoshida, he headed back to Japan to kill her, with Viper agreeing to aid him, though they were opposed by Wolverine and the X-Men. She is a nihilist.
Right here. Frank Cho, he's one of my favorite comic artists. Oh my god, I did not tell you to full screen.
Violent professional mercenary and terrorist who has led entire organizations and sometimes kills for little to no reason. She's fought against most of the major heroes in the Marvel Universe at one time or another and is a major threat. But in the movie, she's a biochemist mutant with snake powers who is working with Ichiro Yoshida to harvest Wolverine's healing factor. Alongside Yoshida's company, she develops nanobots that are able to enter Wolverine's body and limit his healing abilities, as well as help keep Yoshida alive longer. Her mutant powers give her an immunity to poisons, as well as the ability to create any toxin and secrete it out from her serpent-like tongue or retractable claws. Increased levels of strength and agility, as well as the ability to heal from seemingly fatal injuries by shedding her skin like a snake. She wears green, kinda works with a version of Silver Samurai, and uses and has an immunity to poisons. But the comic version is not a mutant, just a poison expert. And though they're both violent psychopaths, the comic version commits acts of terror and violence on a societal scale, while the movie version is a scientist intensely focused on her research and experiments. The movie version is also never referred to as Ophelia Sarkissian. She is only referred to as the
Luna!
What?
Can you...
pseudonym Dr. Green. They were clearly grabbing up comics from the arc this story is very loosely inspired by and thought Viper seemed cool, but realized they didn't actually have the rights to her since she's not specifically an X-Men character, and so just made a bunch of crap up instead. I mean, yeah, she was associated with the Serpent Society, but to turn that into her being a straight-up snake lady is a bit of a stretch, man. Not every frickin' character has to be turned into a friggin' mutant just because this is an X-Men movie, you know? At 6, we move down to Sluggo. In both the comics and movie, Sluggo is not a big character. In the comics, he's an old ally of Deadpool who worked with Weapon X. We see him while he's searching for the lost will of his old employer and is tracking down Copycat, who he believes has knowledge of its whereabouts. He finds her disguised as the twin sister of his ex-girlfriend out and about, and for virtually no reason shoots one of the two identical women, as if just by accident, before realizing, crap, I hope I didn't shoot the one that's Copycat. His reason is never really all that elaborated on, and much later, he's eventually killed. In the movies, he's even less of a character. He's the big guy Firefist tries to take out in the prison in Deadpool 2, who punches him a few times. They look nothing alike, they act nothing alike, we have no idea what his power is in the movie, but in the comics, Sluggo is never revealed to be a mutant. He's just a human with a higher level of durability than most. While, as we see in the movie, he is a mutant in a mutant prison. Every now and then you get one of these that only like 2 people in the world will maybe be upset about, so it doesn't really matter, but at that point you have to ask, what was the point of even giving this character a comic name? Just call him Big O or something. Alright, and now, finally, entering the top 5 most horribly adapted Fox X-Men villains. With it being...
Well, I'll be right back. Hold that thought. Okay.
being nearly unbelievable that there are 5 more to go through after what we've seen so far,
Damn.
starting with Silver Samurai.
Again?
So you remember the
Wait,
deal,
what?
right? Kunoichi Harada, mutant with the ability to channel
Where else did
energies
he
through his
show up?
katana to cut through just about anything, dresses as a samurai and uses his powers as a criminal and mercenary, gets pissed that his sister Mariko was named head of his family clan just because he was an illegitimate son of Lord Shingen Yoshida, and so returns to Japan to kill her and Wolverine, but is defeated by Wolverine and offered a position as the right hand and heir of the Yoshida clan. Then he goes on to continue as both an enemy and ally of Wolverine throughout the decades. So, in that last entry, Silver Samurai was not Kenoichi Harada. It was an original character for the movie. But Kenoichi Harada is also actually in this movie. And somehow, he's less like the character he actually is in the comics than the completely original character was. In the movie, he is not a mutant, but a regular human. He is not a samurai, but a ninja. He is not a criminal, but is the leader of the personal ninja security force of the Yoshida family. He is not the son of Shingen Yoshida, illegitimate or otherwise, or the brother of Mariko, but is instead her ex-lover. Why do they keep making these alternate universe family members into... He does the bidding of the family patriarch, and though he loves her, he captures Mariko and subdues Wolverine with poison-tipped arrows. Later, he has a change of heart and tries to help him, but is killed by Silver Samurai. Man, stripped of his entire character and family, forced to hook up with his own sister, and killed by the character he's supposed to be playing. That's one of the most brutal adaptations I've ever seen.
Damn.
Sorry, man. At 4, we got
Bro got
Callisto.
shafted.
Callisto was a mutant who learned at a young age to distrust
Oh,
humans
yeah,
after an
Callisto.
incident that led to the loss of one of her eyes. She hid in the tunnels beneath New York and eventually brought other outcast mutants together as an underground society known as the Morlocks.
Morlocks.
They held a deep resentment for humans and surface dwellers and would often kidnap or attack them, eventually kidnapping Angel of the X-Men, who Callisto planned to force to be her mate. While the X-Men attempted to free him from the Morlocks, Storm challenged Callisto to a trial by combat, with the winner taking the mantle of leader of the Morlocks. Storm wins and forces the Morlocks to both free her teammates and stop terrorizing the surface world, leading to Callisto having a hatred of Storm. Though after trying to get revenge, that hatred eventually turns into a form of respect and Callisto eventually changes her ways, with Callisto and the Morlocks becoming allies of the X-Men from time to time. Her mutant abilities give her heightened levels of
least they
sight,
got that
smell,
right in
taste,
the
hearing,
movie.
and touch,
Her and
giving
Storm.
her abilities like night
right.
vision, the ability to hear even the most minor of sounds, track smells across distances, and even the ability to sense tastes that have not even touched her tongue. And she also has enhanced levels of strength, agility, and incredible levels of reflexes. In the movie, they decided to adapt her sometimes wearing a leather jacket and pretty much nothing else. This version of Callisto is a member of the Omegas, a group of outcast mutants. Unlike the Morlocks, who are outcast due to their disfigured appearance, the Omegas seem to be outcasts more due to dressing like a bunch of punks. There is no evidence that they live underground, as we only see them attending an above-ground meeting of mutants talking about what to do about the newly developed cure, with the Omegas agreeing to serve under Magneto and his Brotherhood. In the comics, one of Callisto's biggest characteristics is her feelings of being an outcast due to her scars, while the movie version is just normal looking and pretty, completely lacking the eye patch that makes Callisto recognizable as Callisto. Instead of her comic powers, this movie version has the random cocktail of powers of the ability to sense where other mutants are, a power they took from fellow Morlock Caliban and just tossed onto her, as well as the ability to sense how strong their X-Factor makes them. She also randomly has the ability of literal super speed, not just enhanced agility, but the ability to run faster than the human eye can see, or even a bolt of lightning can strike, and some unidentified amount of enhanced durability as well. Whether or not she has similar levels of resentment towards humanity is not explored, as we only see her allying with Magneto to stop humans from weaponizing the cure. And though she does fight Storm throughout the movie, instead of Storm defeating her in combat and gaining her respect, she just electrocutes the bitch to death at the end. I really have no idea why they did this. Either call her some random made-up name like Quick Search, or just give her an eye patch, call these guys the Morlocks, and replace that crappy Psylocke with a crappy Caliban, and boom, problem solved. And now, somehow, we have 3 more villains to go, so let's continue the countdown with number 3, Vanisher. Vanisher is a mutant with the ability to teleport anywhere he chooses, who used his powers to commit crimes as one of the X-Men's earliest foes. Much later on, he is forcibly inducted into X-Force when Elixir implants a tumor within his brain, with the promise to remove it only if he acts as the team's transportation. Now, I ain't gonna sit here and genuinely complain about how Vanisher was adapted in Deadpool
The hell
2.
of a black
Him and all of X-Force were pretty much a parody of what I've been complaining about across all of these lists, hyping up all these random comic characters who are being adapted into a movie before it releases, and then when you go see it, they really don't do much more than you already saw in the trailers, and are likely just glorified cannon fodder, in pretty much the exact way all of Team X were in Wolverine Origins. In this movie, Vanisher is said to have the power of invisibility, but during his interview into X-Force, he doesn't say anything, so Deadpool is not even sure if he's actually in the room or not. Later, we see his parachute fly into some power lines, electrocuting him to death, and quickly letting us see a glimpse of him as being played by Brad Pitt. I think it's a very funny joke, but a bad adaptation is a bad adaptation, whether it was done on purpose or not. And I guarantee there was at least one big Vanisher fan out there who was fuming throughout the...
What?
the entire movie. Anyway, the only real similarity is that he worked with X-Force, and he was a mutant. And somehow we still have two more. Dear God, who could be left? Let's see. At number 2, we come down
Dear
to...
God, who could be left?
no. Selene. In the movie X-Men Dark Phoenix, Selene is a
watched
mutant
it.
with the power of telepathy, who lives on a very teeny version of Genosha and follows Magneto to America to kill Jean Grey. But later, kinda helps Magneto and the X-Men fight the Dabari to protect Jean Grey. Then she's grabbed by one of them and tossed out of the train and killed. In the
Oh.
comics, Selene is a powerful mutant sorceress who is thousands of years old. She does have telepathic abilities, but she also has the ability to absorb the life force of other humans into herself, killing them and adding their life force to her own, making her functionally immortal. She can also control people by only partially draining their life force, making them slaves to her will and giving them the ability to drain the life force of others. Selene can use those drained energies to become inhumanly strong, fast, and durable, and is able to survive pretty much all forms of physical injury,
she's like
even
Rogue
able to
if she can
resurrect from
control.
apparent death or complete destruction. She can also use the absorbed life force to reach out to objects, giving her the telekinetic ability to move them, as well as to restructure the molecules in organic matter at her whims. She can levitate and use their energies to create powerful force fields. She has psychic abilities, including the ability to both read minds and communicate mentally, the ability to mask her thoughts from other telepaths, project mental energies to weaken or injure the minds of others, and hypnotize and control others. She's an incredibly powerful sorceress, able to change her appearance at will, teleport great distances, change her form, or become intangible, project blasts of magical energy, and many other magical abilities, with what of her abilities are due to her magics and which are due to her mutations never being fully revealed. Across the centuries, she has amassed followers that worship her as a goddess. The New Mutants first came across her performing a human sacrifice in a hidden city far from civilization. They stopped her and her followers, but after seeing these mutants and their abilities, she traveled to the modern world to learn more. There, she learned of the Hellfire Club and forced her way into their organization, becoming the group's Black Queen, working to manipulate herself
Okay,
into
yeah,
complete
Black
control of the
Queen,
group
that's who I
before
thought
growing
she was.
disinterested in plotting their destruction. Her long-term goal is to ascend to godhood, often through rituals involving the sacrifice of great numbers of lives, including a plan to use a technovirus that can resurrect dead mutants to raise an army of them from their graves, specifically directed at the millions of mutants killed on Genosha, as her slaves to absorb their souls and ascend to literal godhood. Selene is an incredibly powerful and dangerous threat who could easily be the main villain of an entire movie. They saw that and thought, you know, this character's great and all, but she'd be better if she looked and acted nothing like that version, was not an immortal or a sorceress, didn't have the power to absorb the life force of others, had no connection to either the Hellfire Club or had any followers. Instead of raising the dead on Genosha in a mad plan to ascend to godhood, she was just a random mutant girl who lived there, was not her own villain with her own motivations, but was instead just a random lackey of Magneto who is no more important than that hair guy she works alongside that they just made up. Yeah, oh man, we got it, dog. Fans are gonna love this one. Even with all those changes, though, she's barely a character in this movie. We learned virtually nothing about her or her relationship to Genosha or Magneto. The only similarities are that they have some telepathic ability, are mutants, and I don't know, wear black, but everyone friggin' wears black in the X-Men universe, so whatever. Why? Just why? Oh, God. And yeah, after all that, we still have one last villain who wins the dishonor of being the official worst adapted villain in all of the Fox X-Men franchise,
what could get
Kid
worse than
Omega. Kid Omega was a young student at the Xavier School. He is an Omega-level mutant telepath with an advanced mind that allows him to process and organize thoughts at a rate of millions of complex thoughts per second. He has incredible telepathic abilities, such as being able to scan and influence the minds of others, even being able to subconsciously affect their thoughts, an inability to be read by other telepaths, and many other complex mental abilities. He was Xavier's prized pupil at the school, though his incredible levels of intelligence and abilities made him feel out of place socially. And due to a mixture of social and personal problems, resentment at the way mutants were treated and perceived by humans, and an addiction to a powerful mutant drug called Kick, Quire developed an openly rebellious attitude towards Xavier's dreams of mutant and human coexistence, forming a gang within the school called the Omega Gang, and leading them into the city to attack and kill a group of humans they falsely believed were responsible for the death of a mutant fashion icon. This continued to escalate until on a day when the school was open to parents and human media outlets, Quire declared a riot at the school with the aims of committing acts of violence and rebellion against all humans. Quire and the others attacked. You know what? Who cares? Why am I bothering to go through this here? This movie did not give a crap about this character or any of this, so why am I giving so much time to explaining him? Because it doesn't matter. In the movies, Kid Omega is that guy with the spikes on his face from X-Men 3.
What?
He's a member of the Omegas who attacks the island the Cure is located.
Oh, I thought his character's name was Quill. And he was a different character. Are you sure that's supposed to be Kid Omega? I thought that was a character named Quill. Because isn't Quill a canon X-Men character? I'm confused about that. I could have sworn. Really?
On with the Brotherhood. He has the mutant power to grow little spikes from his face that he seems to genuinely think would intimidate a guy who can control friggin' fire, with his only dangerous use of it being when he hugs a lady to death later in the movie. And then he's disintegrated, the end. They never say his name in the movie, but if you wait around until the credits, there you go, Ken Leung, Kid Omega. Wow.
What?
This is obviously not Kid Omega. This is...
Where the hell did I get Quill from then? Because I remember somebody saying that's who he was supposed to be. And that makes sense because he has little quills in him like a porcupine or a hedgehog. So what the hell?
An incredibly crappy adaptation of the completely unrelated character Quill, who is not even a villain. Now there are people online who will claim this is Quill, who attacks the island the Cure is located on with the Brotherhood. He has the mutant power to grow little spikes from his face that he seems to genuinely think would intimidate a guy who can control friggin' fire, with his only dangerous use of it being when he hugs a lady to death later in the movie. And then he's disintegrated, the end. They never say his name in the movie, but if you wait around until the credits, there you go, Ken Leung, Kid Omega. Wow. This is obviously not Kid Omega. This is an incredibly crappy adaptation of the completely unrelated character Quill, who is not even a villain. Now there are people online who will claim this is Quill and that there was some kind of weird mistake made in the credits, but I call BS on this for many, many reasons. The first is that the gang is called the Omegas and are obviously a reference to the anti-human Omega gang from the comics, making it likely the name Kid Omega was written somewhere in the script. The second is that this is the same movie that turned Callisto into Caliban and Quicksilver, and Psylocke into whatever they were going for there. They don't care which character is named what or who has what power in this movie. Third is that the people making these movies always claim this kind of BS. When fans attack the crap they just toss up onto the screen carelessly. Oh, that wasn't Emma Frost. That's just Emma. Oh, that's not the real Deadpool. We'll see him later. Oh, we were just saving Galactus' true form for a spin-off. He's not a cloud. Don't trust anything these people say after a movie is poorly received. If all of these characters were received well, they would have said it was their genius that changed them into what they are. But my most important piece of evidence is one people usually overlook. When we see him from behind, he has a literal Omega symbol shaved into the back of his head. You're telling me the guy they shaved a literal Omega symbol onto was only accidentally called Kid Omega in some kind of bizarre crediting error. Come on, man. My theory here is that they just don't care. They're all just random-ass names and powers to them. From what I've seen, my guess is that Kid Omega was in some early version of the script as a leader of the Omegas or some crap. But as things got switched around in the chaos of this production, the name remained in the script but was moved to a totally different character. And then looking through pictures of random mutants for powers, someone thought Quill looked interesting and they just tossed it onto a random character in the script who didn't have a power yet. Whatever the reason, every time you watch the movie and those credits roll, Kid Omega is the only name you're given for this character within the movie, so Kid Omega is his friggin' name. In the comics, Kid Omega represents the rage many young people feel towards society, both for not knowing how to fit into it due to their own personal issues, as well as the bigger injustices of the world that they feel powerless to affect, and how directing those violent, angry, aimless, destructive impulses towards an enemy you can rationalize justifying causing pain to can not only lead to the harming of innocents, but inadvertent harm to yourself and those you care about, showing us why the ideals of hope, tolerance, and empathy the X-Men usually try to represent are an ideal worth trying to aspire towards instead. In the movies, Kid Omega represents that the people making these things care so little about the stories they're making that they genuinely thought audiences would think a guy who can make friggin' quills come out of his face would be badass. So, whether through sheer incompetence or utter apathy, and honestly likely both, the worst adapted villain I have ever seen, Kid Omega.
Damn.
There you go. The top 20 worst adapted Fox X-Men villains.
sad.
A lot of these honestly weren't as horrible as the characters on the top 20 worst adapted X-Men heroes list, with some actually being pretty well-liked villains like Lady Deathstrike and Pierce. It's a shame to see them listed out like this, though, and see what could have been. A riot at Xavier's plot? An actual Hellfire Club? The Morlocks? So many of these parts and lore would have been awesome to explore. It shows a real lack of imagination and ambition on these Hollywood writers. And if they'd taken the time to really try and bring some of these elements to life, maybe the franchise wouldn't have died twice, and we'd still be exploring this world instead of just having Disney strip mine these already strip mine characters for some quick old nostalgia. But whatever. What do you think? How many of these villains did you think were really good in the movies, despite their changes? How many pissed you the heck off? How does this compare to how the heroes were adapted, in your opinion? Next up for Fox will be the best adapted heroes and villains for comparison, which, fingers crossed, will not have to take as long as this one did. After I finish Fox, it'll be time to pick the next universe to direct my mutant ability to bring out the 3 C's upon. Let me know which one you'd like to see next in the comments. And while you're down there, give this video a like, and if I've earned it, toss me a sub and hit that bell thingy. And if you really haven't gotten enough of hearing me talk, go subscribe to me on X/Twitter, where you can watch me just say random crap all day. Anywho, until next time, see ya. But man, guys, I avoided watching it until making these lists, but my god, Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, I didn't even bother watching that one.
It's not something that you really should do. Logically, this role has been interpreted so beautifully.
I think the Joker would like 30 Seconds to Mars.
I'm going
Isn't
to
that your
discuss the
band?
worst of the best. The most awful take on something awesome. I'm
It's a bit
talking, of course,
narcissistic,
about
don't you think?
Jared Leto's time as the Joker. Now, this is definitely not something that's been understated. I think almost universally as a society, we've come to accept that Jared Leto was almost as awful in these movies as he is in real life. Yet still, this iteration of the character does have some fans, which confuses me almost as much as Jared Leto still having some fans. So, I guess it fits. Now, for all the bad and bizarre things that could be said for Jared Leto, like how the man is literally currently a cult leader, he isn't a bad actor. Or at least he wasn't at one point in time. Because I don't know what happened here. I don't know what inspired Jared Leto to play the Joker as if he were the human embodiment of a non-stop cringe compilation, but I really wish he would stop smoking it. The Joker is so irredeemably bad that he not only fails the character that he's based on, but just also fails as a character in general.
I could tell you meant that.
He's an attack on the audience's senses, harmful to viewers' eyes and ears and the taste buds of anyone who has taste. If we're going to talk about how this guy fails, I mean, this guy fails on every level. Let's just start with the way that he looks. Alright, I think that speaks for itself. Let's move on. It would be that easy. Honestly, that's all it takes. But I'll go ahead and dissect just why this is so awful. First off, he doesn't resemble the character that he's based on in any way, shape, or form. Not even slightly. There have been all different types of iterations of this character, and this looks like none of them. I mean, the lack of effort that was put into this character design is honestly some next level stuff. They just gave Punkos Crunk over here green hair and a purple glove and went, alright, that's that, let's move on. What's next? What were they even going for? The grills, the tattoos? Even all these years later, I can't seem to convince myself that this is real. This isn't even a fever dream, it's a fever nightmare ripped into our reality, Freddy Krueger style. Even if we completely forget about who it is he's supposed to be portraying, this is beyond goofy. The guy's posing as if he's auditioning for Home Alone 7. And he's got this weird, I was a huge MySpace star in 2007 aesthetic. He looks like an album cover I would have bought in an old school Hot Topic. If this Joker was a product, he would be sold at Spencer's. Generally speaking, I'm not really in favor of a tatted up Joker. That's coming from a guy who's got tattoos. That just doesn't seem like his style to me. It doesn't seem to fit the character. If I could look past that and just judge these tattoos for what they are, it looks like they put as much thought into this character's tattoos as I put into my own tattoos that I got when I was 18. I mean, seriously, what are these tattoos? Jester cap, smiles, playing cards, ha ha ha. Oh, I get it, cause Joker. Yeah, no, that's good. That's clever. It took me a second there, cause it's very subtle. Then they put damaged across his forehead because they really thought they were making some sort of statement with that one. Look at the tragic beauty. This movie in general has all the depth.
Oh, and don't forget the J on his cheek. Now, I kind of like the ha-ha-has, you know, and maybe the jester character, maybe the playing cards. I don't know, they're alright. The damaged across his forehead one is just really on the nose and really cringe. That one's the one that gets me.
Of a 2000s music video. And yet it wants to act like it's artsy. You know, it's like a weird thing to be pretentious in. They should have saved themselves time instead of putting that across Jared Leto's head just printed right across the cover of the script. The only one that stands out to me as not being entirely terrible is the dead bird with the arrow going through it. That's not a bad reference, honestly. Everything else is
Oh, yeah, because of Robin. Yeah.
awful, but that one's almost something. I really loathe the fact that they tried to justify the Joker's namesake by getting him a set of grills. That is such a dumb idea for the character, and it seems like their attempt to make a change just to say that they made a change. I think what's most
so they
striking
can say
about this
theirs
is
is
the
unique.
absolute lack and overall resentment of subtlety this version of the character has. It may be the most loud, in-your-face, gross versions of the character, and I'm saying this including the one who literally ripped his own face off. Now, to its credit, this look does demand attention, and it is quite shocking to look at, which I sort of think is in tune with the character. This guy looks like he's always the center of attention and the topic of conversation.
Yeah.
He's so over the top in presentation that how could you not notice him? And if his appearance wasn't loud enough, he himself certainly is. Just as distinct and recognizable as his aesthetic is his equally repulsive voice, which is really all over the place. At times it sounds like your friend's worst Heath Ledger impression, just with an added sense of uncertainty and inflection and squeaky grunts. And at other times it just sounds like an actor desperately trying to fake a voice he practiced twice through a set of prosthetics that were super glued onto his teeth.
Yeah.
But even worse than his speaking voice, his laugh is so unsettling. But not like creepy unsettling, like annoying unsettling. He doesn't sound menacing, he just sounds like a dude with a strange laugh. I mean, it's weird, sure, but it's not, scary. The guy just sounds like he found something hysterical while he had a cold. Which leads me to ask, how did this guy get cast in this role? You cast a Joker who can't laugh? Or act, apparently? It just seems like that would be a pretty integral part of the character that you think would make or break a performance. The
Yeah.
character doesn't get any better when it comes to characterization. He carries next to no qualities of the character that he's based on. I think out of everyone to ever play the character, he looks the most clueless in the role. But to his credit, he's also very confident in his incompetence. Jared Leto proudly struts around and puts passion into every part of this performance. You can really tell that he tried. Like, you could tell that he
but you don't need anything
really tried. Really hard. He tried too hard. And because of that, the Joker comes off as very try-hard. There's never a moment with the character on screen where he feels genuine or
You can have
authentic.
water.
There are definitely moments where you can feel the original character's
Alright, hold on.
unpredictability come through. through this performance, because you never know what he'll do next, and you'll never guess why he did it. In those ways, he feels true to the spirit of the source. But in every other
Fair.
way, he feels like a soulless attempt at modernizing a timeless classic. On some level, it feels like this movie was really trying to replicate Heath Ledger's performance, at least conceptually, trying to depict the Joker as the mere concept of chaos. Except, this isn't the right movie for that type of character. That version of the Joker simply wouldn't work in this environment. That's a complex, three-dimensional character, and this is a very doofy comic book movie that prides itself with how edgy it is. This is neither the right time nor the right place for that type of character. Completely wrong enclosure. On top of that, it doesn't seem like the writing team could articulate the character's nature, so they just have the Joker come out and say,
I am not someone who is loved. I'm an idea.
being that movies are a visual medium, the idea is to show and not tell. This not only tells and doesn't show, but this also insists upon itself. You know, I am an idea. I guess to be fair, The Dark Knight's Joker spent a lot of the runtime self-analyzing his own actions as well. Guy's dialogue made it seem like he was writing a thesis for the movie that he was in. But at least in that case, the lines felt thought out and well written. Entirely inauthentic to the way real humans speak and would address situations, but well written and articulated nonetheless. To call Jared Leto's Joker a discount dollar store version of Heath Ledger's Joker would still be an insult to Heath Ledger. Ledger's Joker had depth, whereas I could stand in a puddle of Leto's Joker and not get wet. Because of this variant of the character essentially spitting in the face of subtlety while being showcased as an absolute nitwit, it's especially hard to buy into a lot of the stories surrounding the character. I can't imagine a lunatic like him would wind up running a mob. I can imagine him dabbling in the criminal underworld, but taking it over seems like an impossibility. Much more importantly, it's hard for me to imagine that this Joker would be able to charm and seduce Harley into a life of villainy. It is still absolutely maddening to me how this movie depicted the Madman. If we're judging the performance based on the outrageousness of the character, then we could say it's a solid interpretation of Batman's greatest foe. However, what's missing is the reason, the method behind the madness. The Joker doesn't do things to serve his cause or further his agendas in this. And mind you, every Joker, even the self-proclaimed anarchists, all have agendas. This guy just does things to do them. Joker's unpredictable, sure, and while he definitely can't be reasoned with, he still does things with reason. There's a purpose for his actions. This Joker's just missing the plot, which makes sense as he's hardly even involved in the one that he's in. Another big reason this version of the character is so lackluster is because there isn't much of a Batman and Joker dynamic presented in this line of films. They're enemies with a history, sure, but their relationship is tragically underwritten and not given any attention. Joker just comes off as any other villain to Batman, and Batman really comes off as someone who gets in the way of Joker's plans. Where is the borderline obsession Joker has for the Bat? The hatred wrapped up in awe and curiosity. There's none of that.
I think that, the Bat is a lot of fun.
In its place, we got Ronnie Radke trying to look like a SoundCloud rapper. Excluding Batman from the Joker story isn't impossible. Joaquin Phoenix is having a pretty good run in a Batman-less Joker universe, but that fact is much harder to overlook when a Batman and a Joker are shown to exist in the same universe, but have limited interaction. The few bits where we see this Batman and Joker collide are not great, and it to me shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the Joker character overall. Suicide Squad paints a picture that's an imperfect portrait. In this, Batman's just sort of a nuisance to Joker. He gets in his way of having fun, he stops his crime spree. A more accurate depiction of the two would see Batman be what inspires Joker's latest crime spree, because getting one over on Batman is the Joker's way of having fun. The truth of the matter is, these movies didn't really give us the Joker. They gave us Harley Quinn's boyfriend, because that's the Joker's role in this universe. He's introduced merely as a backdrop for Harley, he plays his part in her origin story, and then after that, he has no purpose. He is her plus one. He is just an extension of the Harley Quinn character. In Suicide Squad, he's only there to set up his significant other. And then by Birds of Prey, they've already broken up off screen. He's still mentioned a lot in that movie, but that's mainly because it's a Harley Quinn-led movie, and that's his purpose, to play a part in the life of Harley Quinn. That is the focal point for this character in this line of films. He's Harley's man, sometimes. I usually don't blame actors for their portrayals in movies, at least not in full. I think a lot of the blame has to ultimately fall on the director and those in charge of creative. You know, that's why you have a lot of actors who've won prestigious awards and Razzies alike. It's all about who's in charge creatively. But in this case, Jared Leto was granted a lot of creative freedom, and it seems like both he and David Ayer sort of carved out the character themselves.
How much say did you actually have in the look of the Joker?
A lot. David Ayer and I really collaborated on the Joker.
This is their creative baby, and I really wish that it would have been aborted. If this is their shared vision, as The Offspring once sang, you gotta keep them separated. Jared Leto was the master of his own destiny and destruction in this line of films, in this cinematic universe. Now, with all this being said, I'm willing to admit two things about this version of the character. One, I thought he and Margot Robbie worked very well together at times. That one scene of Joker performing Harley's rechristening, I think that's actually kind of great. I find it to be that movie's main highlight. While I think Jared Leto's Joker was completely intolerable throughout that entire movie, I do, however, think that Margot Robbie made him a little bit less intolerable. And two, despite it being entirely unneeded and completely unnecessary, and even though it was included in an extended ending epilogue that never needed to exist, Zack Snyder directed Jared Leto to a significantly better performance with a better overall character design. That scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League gave us everything that was missing in his prior depiction. We definitely get a better insight into his relationship with Batman. The obsession is suddenly present. Batman doesn't seem like an annoyance to the clown, but instead a driving factor. Although the clown does seem very much like an annoyance to him, which is right up the right alley. The Joker's speech pattern is also much better here, and much closer to the original character. Unfortunately, he's still being played by Jared Leto, so you still get lines like this.
Besides, who's gonna give you a reach around?
But, you know, what can you do? It can only be so good. This is honestly the best use of this version of the character, and I think that in this one scene, it's good enough to be a passable performance. It's not great by any means, but it's pretty okay. And pretty okay is an upgrade of seismic proportions in compared to the travesty that came before it. If we would have gotten more of this version of the character, I think everyone, myself included, would have been much more favorable of him. But I still don't think that he would have made a lot of top 10 lists. Seeing what we got and what we could have gotten makes this feel like a real missed opportunity. Jared Leto's Joker could have been better. I don't think he was ever going to be a great Joker, but I do think he might have been able to be a good one. Under the right supervision, given the right guidance, and given significantly less creative control. Ultimately, without a shadow of a doubt, for all the reasons I've listed, and even a couple more that I haven't, I believe this is the all-time worst Joker. Usually this is the part where I ask you to leave a comment, but in lieu of a phrase to repeat, I'm going to ask that everyone who liked this video let me know by giving me their own take in the comment section below. Was this the worst Joker? Let me know. And if it isn't, then who is? Because I've seen I think almost every Joker, and I don't think that there ever could be one worse than this. I mean, Young Justice is cutting it pretty close. Sorry, Brent. I don't think that there's any worse than this. This is an all-time low.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled mayhem to bring you this.
With the excess of Batman projects, you can count on an influx of Jokers. And while there have been some beyond impressive iterations of the Rogue over the years, not every Joker can be Mark Hamill, nor have they been. And that's why today, I'm going to be talking about the worst animated Joker, an honor that goes to Young Justice, who managed to achieve this feat and bring Batman fans the most worthless adaptation of the antagonist ever put to screen. The characters really only appeared twice in that series, and yet that is still too many times. This big bad was bad in a big way. There's just nothing positive about this one whatsoever.
Really?
From design to depiction, it's just all so unsatisfying. Which is somewhat surprising, as Young Justice usually did a good job at converting comic book characters into cartoons. But this iteration was pretty poor. Nothing about it worked, and that's not even an exaggeration. This Joker was cringeworthy in every way, shape, and form. Hard on the eyes and hard on the ears alike. Sure, the character carried the same slender frame and wardrobe the frail lunatic Fringe from the comics did, but it just didn't look all that great on this clown. Sort of felt like Baby's first Joker. The look is just so boring and basic. This didn't look like the Clown Prince of Crime. This looked like a pale, out-of-touch, colorblind businessman who's decked out with sideburns that would make the Beatles blush and canine fangs. There's just nothing unique about this take, which is probably why his appearance was changed in between appearances, with his short second tenure on the show occurring 8 years later. This time he was given longer hair, shorter sideburns, and a more detailed and expressive face. This Joker design was leagues above his previous one, though that's still an incredibly low bar to set. The update is by far better, but neither are exactly ideal. Trust me, those fingerless gloves aren't doing anybody any favors. And while the debut design was changed, what wasn't was the performance, which to me was a much bigger problem, but we'll get to that. This Joker was always made to look goofy, in both appearance and characterization, and I'm not sure if that was their initial intent either. I don't know if they were going for unhinged, unpredictable psychopath and fell short, or they went for a goofy punchline that landed. But either way, it didn't feel like a great use of such an important character of the Batman mythos. While he still had the character's trademark sense of humor, his jokes landed about as often as his punches did. That is to say that they didn't. Again, I don't know if this is a failure or a function of the character, but either way, it's just overall unfortunate. Because the Joker feels less criminal mastermind and more silly, whiny little brat. Even less flattering was the accompanying voice.
Little Miss Poison Ivy spilled the beans! Or whatever grows on grapevines. I'm not a horticulturist, you know.
How you simultaneously juggle multiple scenarios.
I've had practice juggling my multiple personalities. Always wanted to carve this bird. I mean, Riddler knew? Riddler?
Brent Spiner is a talented actor with plenty of star power, pun intended. But he just never really clicked with this character, especially not in this particular series. His act always felt a little bit too much like an act. It was very over the top and theatrical in nature. Spiner was in the studio chewing so much scenery that he was probably picking animated batarangs out of his teeth for days to come, rolling his R's while he's speaking in Shakespearean sonnets. In my opinion, this was far too hammy and over the top for Young Justice. However, I think Brent would be right at home if he was instead attached to a Brave and a Bold type project or those old Scooby-Doo team-ups. If we're judging this Joker by those standards, then I would say it holds up. I still don't think it would be anybody's favorite version of the villain, but it would at least feel like a valid version of the villain. It's not my Joker, but it is a Joker. On this show, however, it feels incredibly off-putting and out of place. As if the Joker from the Silver Age was somehow transported into the modern era. This character just felt grossly misplaced, and Brent Spiner felt mostly miscast. He constantly clashes with the show tonally, and it feels like the narrative grinds to a halt whenever he's included in a story. Even the character's characterization feels much more akin to the old-school Joker, as he's pretty much a goofy, ineffective loon who more often than not is the butt of the joke. Now, if all of that wasn't bad enough, which I think that it is, what makes matters even worse is when you remember all this Joker is supposed to be responsible for in this series. True, he only makes 2 major speaking appearances, but a lot of Young Justice's story is subtly told in the background with the passing of time. Time jumps are all too common in this series. More often than not, the show skips some of the most important moments in DC continuity. So this Joker, despite coming off as a cameo, is still responsible for a lot of crime and chaos. When you're taking this much sillier and, for lack of a better word, stupid iteration of this character into account, It's near impossible to think of this character doing all that he was responsible for. It's hard to imagine this Joker beating and brutalizing Jason Todd. Yet it's implied that that's its canon. All these impactful moments with that implied past doesn't hold the same narrative weight when it's this bozo orchestrating the anarchy. When the show silently references these events, it couldn't feel any more off. This would be like trying to imagine Cesar Romero's Joker paralyzing Barbara Gordon in The Killing Joke, or Jeff Bennett's Joker abusing Harley like other Jokers have been known to do, or trying to envision the Joker from those old Scooby-Doo cartoons I referenced earlier cutting off his own face. My point is that it just doesn't work with this depiction. And this depiction just doesn't work in general. It fails in every way that you hope it would succeed. Which is why, without a shadow of a doubt, this is the worst of the worst of cartoon clowns. Prove me wrong in the comments. Now, I know that some people would put earlier versions of the character as the absolute bottom of the barrel, but I think that they kinda just barely past that with the crutch of time. When you take into account what the character was and how he was depicted in comics at the time, taking note that they were trying to sell this character to the youngest demographic imaginable.
Did decisions with randoms? Everyone ran off rogue and either died or lost connection. What's decisions? What is that?
You realize that these portrayals, while not perfect, are still very much in their element. For me, Brent has to be the worst because he is so far removed from his. I would probably look back on this part much more fondly had he been around during the earlier years. If he was portraying Golden Age Joker, there really isn't much you can complain about. Because once again, it's not my Joker, but it is a Joker. The way that he went about this part in the series that he was a part of is what makes this stand out that much more. And for me, that's what makes this an all-time low for the character. It just seems very out of date and very out of touch for the landscape that it's in. With all due respect to Brent Spiner, who is a fantastic actor that I very so much enjoy in everything else I've ever seen him in, if you're looking for evidence of this man's talent, for mere moments he made the movie Master of Disguise somewhat watchable.
Right?
That's nothing to sneeze at. But this just wasn't it. It wasn't it for him or for us. He's had much better roles, and we've had much better Jokers. You would think, given this specific performance, that the studio would say, "Hey Brent, thanks for coming. Your stay was short, but you still overstayed your welcome." And then shut the door on that iteration of the Joker forever. However, you would be very wrong. Because instead, following that introduction, Warner Brothers let that man inside, bringing Brent back to voice the character in their reincarnation of Radio, Batman the Audio Adventures.
Oh.
Hold on. This is news to me. I gotta process this. Are you telling me bowler hats are back in, Eddie? Milt says it's a matchstick. Is that right? I don't get it. Oh, I get it. I don't like it. You're talented. You don't deserve the names people call you. What do people call me? In this one, everybody falls in love in the end.
While I'm still not a huge fan, I will say that the tone of the Audio Adventures does better suit the clown that's in ill-fitting suits. It's a huge improvement, and it really goes to show you how an actor not only has to be the right person for the part, but also how an actor could potentially be the right person for the part, but that part is just in the wrong place. Once again, I don't think Brent Spiner is ever going to break through the top 10 Jokers list. Hell, I wouldn't even put him on the top 20. But I will say that he is much better here than he was over there, just based on the story and setting that surrounds the character. I admire Brent as an actor, but I don't admire him as a criminal clown. In my opinion, he is the worst Joker we've ever gotten. But that's also not a position that I would say that he's in alone.
No. There is another.
This one's gonna be a short video. Mainly because the Joker in question, who I will go on to question as a Joker, didn't get a whole lot of screen time. Not that anyone's complaining. I spoke recently about who I felt was the worst Joker ever animated. And in that video, I mentioned that there was one who was just as bad. But I want to take that back, because that was actually a factually inaccurate statement. Because this one is the by far worst, the absolute bottom of the clown barrel. Far worse than the Joker from Young Justice is the Joker from Injustice. And I'm not talking about the video games either. That's a completely different actor for a completely different video. I'm talking about this piss-poor iteration of the Joker in this piss-poor adaptation of Injustice, who is every bit as bad as the movie that he's in.
Well. Imagine meeting you here, Lewis. I'm pulling the best joke ever. It'll be my masterpiece. Time to go, honey. Good guys are coming and they tend to get punchy.
He made an impression, but it wasn't one that you'd want to make. Even though there's only a little time spent with this villain, it's not exactly time well spent. The character just fails on every level imaginable.
Doesn't seem very
If you're comparing him to his in-game counterpart, he falls short.
Oh no! This time, the joke's on you, and the world will burn.
That's why I like you, Superman. You're much more gullible than...
And if you try to compare him to whatever standards you already have for the character, once again he falls short of the mark.
And it was as easy as beating a puppy to death with a kitten!
That actually is... pretty funny.
The Injustice
So,
movie
apologies
had
to
to ruin
Brent
Injustice
Spiner,
1.
because while Brent didn't give a good Joker performance in my opinion, he still gave a Joker performance. But Kevin Pollak couldn't even be bothered. Though the two are very different, I have the same exact problem with this performance as I do with Brent Spiner's. The story portrays it as a more modern take on the character, a chaotic clown who only lives to make other people's pain his own punchline. However, the actual performance depicts him as being a goofy dope who just makes bad jokes. Sure, you could say that Mark Hamill managed to meet somewhere in the middle and create a much more nuanced take that combined these two elements, but Mark Hamill this is not. The look is current, but the actual performance is taken straight out of the Silver Age. And when combined, it just doesn't work. Actually, come to think of it, it doesn't work separately here either, because if I'm just judging this based on the look, well then it's bad. But if I'm basing this on the performance, well then it's really bad. The voice does seem like a much better fit for the earlier renditions of the Criminal Clown, but still, even taken out of this and put in that environment, I still think it's the bottom of the barrel. Upon re-watching Injustice, I would have to argue that this Joker is far worse than that Joker. And you know what? I think he might even be worse than this Joker.
Oh,
maybe.
damn.
Maybe. Whereas Brent Spiner's Joker was a good actor with a bad Joker performance, Kevin Pollak's is a good actor with a bad overall performance. Brent was out of his element, but in the right setting he would be acceptable in the role. This Joker would fail in any setting. It's a mistaken makeup. I don't know that there's a backdrop you could drop this Joker in to make his performance feel right at home or, well, honestly even tolerable. It's pretty bad. What I can't seem to understand is that if they were adapting the video game's lore, why not just include the same actor from the games? Richard Epcar is a solid Joker. I know he's not everybody's favorite and some people have opinions of him that aren't always all that great, but in my perspective, I think he's fine.
Well, then you are lost!
Richard Epcar is a solid Joker.
Yes.
I know he's not a whole lot of people's favorites, but he's a lot more beloved than this guy is. I understand that the main cast from the game wasn't brought to home video. Not entirely sure why, but I understand that. But they probably should have made an exception here. The tools were right there for them to use. They just chose to instead use sticks and dirt. Well, at the very least, you could say that this is a performance that matches the movie it's a part of. Though it's confusing because Kevin is actually a very talented individual. He's an incredible impressionist who can pull off a variety of voices, sometimes doing impersonations so well that if you closed your eyes, you'd believe you were talking to the real thing.
Frankenstein never scared me. Marsupials do, because they're fast.
Oh, don't be frightened. Down, Mr. Happy. Oh, don't be frightened. Down, Mr. Happy.
Excuse me, miss. Well, fact of the matter is, some of the fellas have asked me to inquire as to how long you think this might actually take.
Stardate 2, 4, 6.5. And the behavior of my crew, although the faces seem the same.
So to see him fail in such a major way is both shocking and unsatisfying. I don't know, I guess maybe this one wasn't in his arsenal, which is totally valid. Not everyone can do everything. Not every part is for every actor. This was just a bad combination in terms of actor and adaptation. A very unholy union that did much more bad than it did good. It's just bad all around any way you look at it. Although speaking of look, what is this? What in the Diet Heath Ledger am I looking at here? They really didn't have to do anything different than they did in the game. The game's Joker was perfectly fine in both design and depiction. Somehow this movie wronged him in both. It looks like they attempted to recreate the look of the games, but then they also tried to mix and match it with some of his more iconic and somewhat generic looks. And in doing so, they did a massive disservice to all of them. So once again, apologies to Brent Spiner. I must admit, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. Brent and Kevin do not share a spot for the worst Joker. Kevin is #1, always and forever. -1.
Only the very best for you, Harley.
There's just nothing special or unique about this version of the character. Ultimately, the movie makes him an afterthought in what they were trying to achieve. Kev, big fan, but this villain thing, it's not for you, pal. Go back to clown school.
Always playing your cards close to the vest. You can't do that when one of those cards is the Joker.
If I said this one was going to be short and sweet, it would be a half-truth. Today we're going to discuss one of the Jokers in gaming. As of right now, Richard Epcar is voicing the character on consoles, and has been doing so since 2008's Mortal Kombat vs. DC. From what I can see, he's very divisive amongst fans. There are those who hate it, and then there are those who tolerate it. But however you feel about the Thunder God turned Jester, I think we can all agree that his portrayal is leaps and bounds better than the video game Jokers that came before him. Because I think this is yet another case of a contender for the worst Joker. This is undoubtedly the worst Joker in video games, at least. You know, I still think that itself might be a little bit of an understatement as well. Because this could be the worst Joker of all time. Look, I know I've said that before, but I think in hindsight, I may have misspoke. Comparatively speaking, this makes Brent Spiner sound like Mark Hamill. I don't think it quite overthrows Kevin Pollak in Injustice, but
he's
it's equally as bad. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to state it, they're sharing a spot for the worst. I'm talking about the Joker from Batman Dark Tomorrow. In the 2003 game, the part was played by actor Alan Enlow, who chose to play the part like an out-of-work clown with a sinus infection.
On the nosy! Say, you're good at this!
Hello, darling. So glad you could make it. Kidnapping Commissioner Gordon.
He's very nasally.
And now for what's behind door number 2. No, we'll save that for another time, won't we? It's playtime now. Sure, child's play. I could do it every day of the week before breakfast.
But you didn't.
Well, of course not. What's fun about it?
Been taken care of.
Oh,
Nice work.
Mommy.
Thanks.
Birdies.
I'll contact Robin.
I don't think I really need to point out what the problem is there. The performance sort of speaks for itself, and I think after hearing it speak, we all wish that it wouldn't.
Yeah.
The voice itself sounds far too nasally and a little bit too mousy. It's less criminal clown and more children's TV show host. Not to mention, it almost sounds like he's speaking with a vaguely posh accent as well. And I don't know where that comes from, but I wish it would go back there because it just doesn't feel right coming out of the Joker. He sounds like the Queen's Court Jester. He sounds like a parody of what someone would consider to be proper. But then again, that's only one of 12 different things he's doing with his voice all at once. None of them good. It almost feels like when he falls out of one performance, he just kind of switches over to another one mid-sentence. I can't get an actual feel for what it is the actor's going for. His voice is only highlighted by the fact that he won't stop speaking. He's all over the place. And he gives a performance that feels like it's fueled by ADHD and speed.
That's a bad combination.
This is one of the hammiest Jokers I've ever seen. So much so that it almost seems too silly for the Silver Age. Cesar Romero's Joker would probably even tell this guy to calm it down. I will say though, in his defense, he did have a chaotic cackle.
You're making me ill.
It's a little, unsettling.
But it is the one good quality that this portrayal offers players. I don't hate the look. It doesn't really do anything new with the character, but then again, it doesn't have to. Yeah, it's simple and generic, but it's done well, and that's what's important. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Outside of that, though, I struggle to see any positives with this performance. Though the problems don't begin and end with the person playing the part. As a matter of fact, the biggest issue is the way the character is written and how poorly he's utilized in the story. He doesn't come off as diabolical, he comes off as dopey, which is emphasized by a plot that plays him for a laugh. Now, look, I understand why they might think that that's the way to go with a character named the Joker, but despite what his name might imply, you should never play the Joker for a joke. It feels especially out of place here when the rest of the rogues are showcased as the serious threats they are, and he's written to be some bad B-lister at best. Just think of the Joker being an afterthought and a total non-factor to Batman. Just because the character wasn't a huge part of the plot doesn't necessitate a depiction that feels more like parody. The character is such a joke that he's the only villain that doesn't engage with Batman in some sort of boss fight, and instead sends his lackeys after the Dark Knight, officially being beaten by a half-hearted punch when Batman wasn't even looking in his direction. As a matter of fact, when the Joker jokes and acts as if he's the brains behind the game's plot, Batman scoffs at the idea and basically states that the Joker is incapable of doing as such.
I know you weren't behind all this, Joker.
What? You don't think I could have pulled all this off?
The Joker, the criminal mastermind, one of the most intelligent enemies the Dark Knight has ever faced.
None other.
Goofy in nature, sure, but there are very few things this man is incapable of, outside of compassion. Yet the game doesn't even make him an obstacle for Batman, but instead a slight inconvenience. I know we're past this portrayal of the character now, but we were kind of already past this type of portrayal for the character back then as well. The Joker happily playing a part in someone else's plan is extremely out of character. It's almost on the same level as Batman killing somebody. I don't doubt that the Joker would act like he was part of someone else's agenda, but that would really only be if he had his own personal plans. Outside of Harley Quinn, Joker partnerships are pretty short-lived, and there's good reason for that. Having the character written off as a willing pawn, I think shows a fundamental misunderstanding, or at least mishandling of the character. And I think it's clear that I've definitely given way more thought to this character than the developers did. Probably far too much thought, actually, for a game that came out in 2003. Batman Dark Tomorrow's interpretation of the character basically boils down to bad laughing man. At the end of the day, this has to be seen as the worst Joker in the worst Batman game. If you like this video and want to see more of the worst or more obscure Jokers out there, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
I am vengeance. I am the night. And that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
He's a good Joker.
Catch him next time. Same bad time.
Same
bad channel.
Maybe I'm biased, but Mortal Kombat...
Wait, where's the volume? What volume? My volume or the video volume? Is my volume too low? You've never even heard of it. Oh, Dark Tomorrow? Yeah, it's one of the not great Batman games.
Combat bosses are just better. They look really cool and have fun gameplay gimmicks, like transforming into other characters, stealing one of your moves, rewinding time, and so on. Don't get me wrong, other fighting games have cool bosses too every now and then, but Mortal Kombat bosses are consistently interesting. With all that being said though, they're also complete idiots. Chronica especially has entire video essays about how dumb her plans are. But honestly, every boss character has stupid moments in this series. I started writing them down and realized it would be the perfect video. So today I'm listing how dumb Mortal Kombat bosses are in every single game. That's right, from the original Mortal Kombat all the way up to Mortal Kombat 1. Make sure to leave a like down below for your favorite boss in the series and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I post videos on a near daily basis and it's always a good time. So without any further ado, let's begin. Alright, we're starting off with Shang Tsung, the very first Mortal Kombat game, and to his credit, Shang Tsung is the least dumb of all the bosses. Don't get it twisted, he still makes really dumb choices every now and then, but still, Shang Tsung is the only Mortal Kombat boss who won it all. He's a master manipulator and schemer who's great at twisting destiny in his favor, but still, he does something really dumb in this first game, because he hired Goro to defeat the great Kung Lao, who previously defeated him in a Mortal Kombat tournament. In other words, Goro is like his bodyguard, and yet he never transforms into him. Like, why not? He transforms into every other opponent in the tournament, but just not Goro, the strongest character to transform into. Literally your bodyguard, stronger than you, able to beat the man who defeated you, and yet you never transform into him. What are you doing, Shang Tsung? Even in Shaolin Monks, while getting his butt kicked by Liu Kang, the man reaches out to Goro like, please save me, man, I need your help. Bro, transform into him. You can do that. Better yet, transform into Shao Kahn. You can do that too. And no, he doesn't need their soul to transform. That's a popular misconception. In Shaolin Monks, he transforms into Raiden. In Deadly Alliance, he transforms into Kung Lao, neither of whom are dead, nor did he ever consume their soul, even a little bit. Shang Tsung can transform whenever he wants to. It's an overpowered ability that he doesn't utilize to its fullest at all. Alright, Mortal Kombat 2. Shao Kahn is the villain of this game, and to his credit, doesn't do anything really stupid, so I had to do a little bit of digging this time and remembered that Shao Kahn taught Shang Tsung soul magic. That's right, the reason Shang Tsung can steal souls from people's bodies is because Shao Kahn taught him how to do that, which means he can do it as well. Which begs the question, why not just consume Shang Tsung's soul to make sure you're strong enough for Liu Kang? You're going in raw, Shao Kahn, without any protection. What are you doing? You know Liu Kang is strong enough to beat Goro and Shang Tsung. You should go into that fight with as much preparation as possible. Consume Shang Tsung's soul. You already hate the guy for failing multiple times, so just eat him and get more powerful to defeat Liu Kang. What are you doing? He does something similar in MK9, which makes Sindel so powerful that nobody can beat her. Nightwolf had to go Harakiri to win this fight, so Shao Kahn could have done that to himself with Shang Tsung's soul in Mortal Kombat 2. Alright, next up is Mortal Kombat 3, where Shao Kahn is the boss again, which I always found boring and redundant on a side note. However, this game doesn't have a tournament, keep that in mind. It's a straight up invasion with no rules. Shao Kahn can do whatever he wants this time to win the day and make sure that Liu Kang doesn't kill him. So he creates this Soulnado that makes him more powerful by consuming consuming all the souls from Earthrealm, right? Pretty smart plan. And in the meantime, he sends out this hit squad to kill Liu Kang, but I'm sitting here wondering, why not just surround yourself with these villains? That way, when Liu Kang shows up, you can just jump him, and it's gonna be over instantly. Because listen, I love Liu Kang, but he can't take on Shao Kahn, plus Goro, plus Kintaro, plus Motaro, plus Shang Tsung. The guy's gonna lose. That's impossible odds. There's no way Liu Kang, even with his virgin energy, could win this fight. But Shao Kahn never thinks to do that. He sends a hit squad out instead, leaving himself alone, so when Liu Kang does arrive, they fight and he loses again. On to Mortal Kombat 4. We get a new boss this time, Shinnok. He's a fallen elder god and also the god of death and necromancy. Scary dude. And also very powerful. I was curious what he did dumb in this game, so I asked the fourth snake and he reminded me that Quan Chi swapped out his amulet without Shinnok knowing. That's right, according to Quan Chi, he made an exact replica of Shinnok's amulet, but it's just a fake. So it looks the exact same, I'm assuming it weighs the exact same as well, but Shinnok, why weren't you testing it every now and then to make sure you had the real thing and not a duplicate? You absolutely know that Quan Chi's a traitor in the making. You're not an idiot, right? You've lived for millions of years, so you know this man might betray you. And yet you never thought to just test the amulet every now and then to make sure it's the real thing. Yeah, Shinnok's kind of a dummy, but next up is Deadly Alliance, and I can't critique them at all because they won. That's right, the Deadly Alliance killed every single good guy, making this the first time in Mortal Kombat history where the villains win the day. So next up, it's time for Deception, when Onaga makes his debut, one of the most beloved bosses in the entire series, and yet he's a massive idiot. This guy makes one of the dumbest fumbles in history. After confronting Shujinko and revealing the entire thing was his master plan to become all-powerful and assemble all the Kamidogu, he just lets the dude leave. He pretends to chase him and then gives up. I'm not joking. You can see him slow down the instant Shujinko leaves the room. I'm guessing he assumed that Shujinko could never come back and beat him because the Kamidogu make him so powerful, but even so, that's still dumb. Why are you letting the one person who could theoretically overthrow you get away? There is no reason to let Shujinko live. Just kill him right now and you win guaranteed. Nobody else even knows you're alive, Onaga. Just kill Shujinko and you're good. You win. But he doesn't. Shujinko's allowed to leave, which gives him time to power up, come back, and then defeat Onaga. Next up is Armageddon, and this one's an interesting case because Blaze wants to die. That's his role in the universe. He's meant to be destroyed by Taven or Dagon, which gives them his power and restores balance to the universe. That's his role, and Blaze knows this. He was created to die and restore order in the universe. So I can't really call him dumb, except for maybe not breaking up the fight between Taven and Dagon. They're not meant to fight. That was not what Destiny foretold. He even mentions this himself, but that's kind of nitpicking. At the end of the day, the plan worked out perfectly until Mortal Kombat 9 when the whole thing got retconned. But originally, Blaze's plan went pretty much as intended. So next up is Mortal Kombat 9, where Shao Kahn is reduced to a blundering idiot, like an actual moron. The fourth snake does a great job explaining this, so I'll streamline it real quick. After Kitana finds out that Shang Tsung's been cloning her and made Mileena, she brings this to Shao Kahn and is like, bro, we gotta punish this guy. He's making clones of me, your daughter, without permission. That's crazy. And since Shao Kahn already hates Shang Tsung for failing him 2 times in a row, you would think he'd go along with Kitana here, but nope, instead he goes, you stupid idiot, you're not my daughter, I hate you. In fact, I'm going to execute you publicly, even though Mileena was meant to step in as your replacement without anybody knowing you were dead. So I should definitely kill you in private so that plan works, but nope, I'm an idiot in this game. So instead, I'll turn my one daughter against me, ensuring she joins the good guys if she does escape. Then before that happens, I'm going to attempt a public execution. So now all of Outworld knows I attempted to kill my daughter for some bizarre unknown reason. Yeah, that's gonna look really bad to the public, and there's no reason for Shao Kahn to do this. He's just dumb in Mortal Kombat 9. So next up is Mortal Kombat X. Shinnok is back, baby, and dumber than ever for some reason. In the beginning, he tries torturing Sonya in front of Johnny Cage, which activates his superpower Green Halo energy. And turns out that's his kryptonite. The Green Halo energy is for killing gods. Even elder gods are weak to this stuff, which Shinnok did not know. Fair enough. He loses his fight, gets captured in his own amulet, the end. That's not the dumb part. Later on is because Shinnok gets out, captures Johnny Cage because he knows what a threat this dude is, but doesn't kill him for some reason. That's mistake number 1. Instead, D'Vorah webs him up and does weird bug penetration torture, which is disgusting. Then Cassie Cage shows up and is like, yo, I'm gonna stop you, Shinnok. And he responds, oh, you must be Johnny Cage's daughter. I'm not gonna kill you right away. Instead, I'm gonna torture your loved one in front of you again. Even though I know that's what triggers the god-killing energy that defeated me originally, I'm gonna do the exact same thing over again for no reason whatsoever. So in other words, Shinnok recreates the exact same situation all over again. He could have killed Cassie before Johnny Cage, or just killed Johnny Cage way in advance. That way Cassie's fight or flight sacrifice energy wouldn't have activated. Either one of these plans would have worked, but instead he sets up his own downfall in the exact same way all over again. That's crazy. Alright, time for Mortal Kombat 11, Kronika, the dumbest boss in Mortal Kombat history, hands down, and there's no debate here. Because this woman has control over time itself and has repeated history over 1,000,000 times, or something crazy like that. Which means by now, she should have a perfect, foolproof plan in case she ever wants to reset the timeline. But nope, instead Kronika has the most ridiculous, convoluted plan with so many holes that it almost feels like she wants the plan to fail, just to keep things interesting. Which would be a fun twist, but the game never states this. Instead, the writers really want you to think Kronika is smart, but she's not. In order to reset time and win the day, all Kronika has to do is teleport to the crown, which we know she can teleport anywhere she wants to. She does this multiple times. So yeah, she teleports, gets the crown, and then just teleports back, resets the timeline. That's all she has to do. But instead, she merges timelines, so Raiden now knows she's up to something. She enlists the help of villains who constantly betray her in Aftermath. And also, she tells Raiden her plan to his face, and also her biggest weakness, which is apparently Liu Kang and Raiden teaming up. That's right, she tells this to Raiden and then kidnaps Liu Kang. Instead of just killing him on the spot, she could absolutely do that. In fact, Kronika can teleport anybody wherever she wants to, so just teleport all the good guys to space, kill them instantly. She can do that. But she doesn't. Instead, she loses, and according to MK1, all these characters on screen have beaten Kronika and become the new Keepers of Time. So yeah, Kronika is hands down the dumbest villain in Mortal Kombat history. Oh man, my voice is going. Next up is Mortal Kombat 1. The secret villain of this game is Shang Tsung from a different timeline. In other words, this MK11 ending on screen is canon. There's a universe where Shang Tsung won that big final fight, became the Keeper of Time, and got his own universe where he's the king and ruler of everything. However, at some point, Shang Tsung became aware of Liu Kang's timeline, where he won the fight and got his own universe too. And then for some reason, for some unknown reason, he starts messing with Liu Kang and puts himself in danger for literally no reason. And I must stress that, for no reason. Shang Tsung, you've already won. You have your own universe where you're the master of everything. The Liu Kang in your timeline is dead. Just leave it alone, man. Just leave it alone and enjoy your success. Be the ruler of everything for the rest of time. You have that, but nope, he doesn't do that. Instead, he invades the other timeline, gets beaten by Liu Kang, and erased from history. He's dead forever now, like 110% dead and gone. Because dying as a Titan means you can never come back. That's stated directly by the game. So that Shang Tsung from the original game is now dead forever. He's gone completely. There's no way to come back. All of which was completely avoidable. He could have stayed in his own timeline. So yeah, this Shang Tsung on screen is really dumb. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. My voice is almost completely gone. I wanted to yell and get hyped for the whole video, which hopefully was fun to watch, but as a result, my voice is almost gone. So if you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like down below. Let's try and get to 2,000 likes at least. Then finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.
Get your rubber lips on, because today we're going to talk about the worst scene from every Batman movie.
Honestly, I could see that being out of boredom. Oh, you mean him deciding to take over another timeline out of boredom? Yeah. True, yeah.
The way this works is that I'm going to go through each entry in order of release, pick the worst scene, and explain why I believe it's the worst. Keep in mind, I'll be judging these scenes from a writing standpoint, which means I won't be criticizing things like acting or special effects or costume design. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Story Made Simple, and welcome to my writing channel. First off, let's start with the movie that everyone's been begging me to talk about. Batman 1966. Every day I get thousands of comments from people saying, Brandon, when are you gonna watch Batman 66? You got...
Though to some of you get blinded by greed as well. Yeah. You wanna see a magic trick? See this pen? Oh, I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. The only thing I don't like about the 66 Batman movie is, they retcon some things from the show. Like, in the show, he knows that Selena Kyle is Catwoman. But then in the movie, all of a sudden, he doesn't know her identity anymore. Like, what? Why did you, continuity error, you know? Why? Why did you do that?
Gotta talk about Batman 66. We're gonna hold your family hostage till you talk about Batman 66. And in an effort to protect my loved ones, I'll discuss it now. This is the movie where four different Batman villains team up to turn people into dust. And hey, give them credit. They pulled it off 50 years before Thanos did. Not only that, but they gave us exploding sharks, fake Russian accents, and mind-bending riddles.
What does a turkey do when he flies upside down?
He gobbles up. As for the worst scene, it's tricky to pick one because this movie is deliberately goofy. Yeah. Like when I started watching this thing, I saw the exploding shark scene and thought to myself, oh, that has to be our winner. But it was basically just there to set the tone for the rest of the film. Yeah. Now, one scene that I thought was absolutely stupid from top to bottom is the torpedo scene. Actually, there are two torpedo scenes, so I have to specify and say it's the first one. What happens here is Batman and Robin are trying to strike back against the villains, and then their belts get magnetically stuck to a buoy. Now, you might think that they would just remove their belts, but no, that's too sensible. Instead, Batman takes out a random bat device, and he uses it to destroy one torpedo after another until his bat batteries run out. Then it's like, oh man, what is he going to do? Is he going to take his belt off? No, of course not. Instead, he and Robin just brace for the worst until they get miraculously saved when an off-screen porpoise swims into the torpedo and sacrifices its life to save them. I mean, I don't know what upsets me more here. The fact that the script torpedoed an innocent porpoise, or the fact that the script never established the porpoise as a potential solution in the first place. The moment comes out of nowhere, it's Porpoise Ex Machina, and our heroes should be taken away in handcuffs for letting this shit happen. Next up, we got Batman 89. This one often gets mistaken for a good movie, but if you've watched it recently, you know better.
I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? The only thing I don't like about the Batman 89 movie is that Batman is actually using lethal force, which he doesn't do. I was gonna say, I swear to God, I do not remember the porpoise part.
Main problem here is that this movie is a coincidence factory. Batman turns a mobster into the Joker. Then Batman and the Joker fall in love with the same woman. Then, while Bruce Wayne is visiting said woman, the Joker prepares to shoot Bruce, and right before he does, he recites a line about dancing in the pale moonlight. Then Bruce is like, wait, that's exactly what the guy who killed my parents said. And then there's a flashback showing how the guy who eventually became the Joker was actually the guy who shot Bruce's parents and turned him into Batman. I gotta say, I almost drop-kicked my TV when I saw this, and yet it's still not the worst scene in the movie. No, the worst scene is when the Joker faces off against the Batwing. This comes after the Joker parades around Gotham while spreading laughing gas. Batman then flies in, launches rockets at the Joker's parade floats, and gets 2 direct hits. Then he turns his sights on the Joker himself. Once Batman's targeting system locks on, he pulls the trigger and launches rockets and machine gun fire at his enemy. Somehow, everything misses, and the Joker takes the world's largest revolver out of his pants. He fires a single shot at the Batwing, and that's all it takes to send Batman into a dramatic crash landing. It's the dumbest plane crash you'll ever see outside of The Last Jedi, and honestly, I don't even know where to begin with this scene. On one hand, why is Batman using a machine gun? On the other hand, why is Batman locking onto a target and missing with his machine gun? And then how does a single bullet drop the high-tech Batplane? This is nuts.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
No, I don't want to get that nuts. At this stage, I want the story to take itself more seriously. But instead, what we get here is a case of the writers pulling strings for the sake of goofy spectacle. Next, we have Batman Returns. And this is a weird movie. It's technically better than Batman 89, but for some reason I enjoy it less. The central problem is that Batman only appears in the movie for about 29 seconds, and he feels more like an obstacle for the villains rather than a true protagonist. It's like the writers gave up on him as a character, and they only included him out of obligation after they wrote a story about the Penguin, Max Schreck, and Catwoman. As for the worst scene, we have a buffet of options here. While I was rewatching this movie, every 5 minutes I was shaking my head in disgust. There's one scene where Batman gleefully kills a man with an explosive device. Then there's one where Schreck has the Penguin run for mayor in a non-election year. And then we have all these wacky Catwoman scenes. I mean, you could close your eyes, pick a scene at random, and be right. But for me, the worst one is the final battle between Catwoman and Schreck. Here, she's seeking revenge on Shrek, who killed her but didn't really kill her midway through the movie. At the end, she declares she's going to get even, but that's when Batman arrives to tell her that murder is wrong, even though he's clearly into that shit. Batman insists on taking Shrek to the police, and in an effort to sway Catwoman, he gives her the old "you and I are the same person" speech before ripping, and I mean ripping, his mask off. He does this in front of Shrek, which makes absolutely no sense, and then Shrek reacts like this.
Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up like Batman?
Because he is Batman, you moron.
I don't know what's dumber, Batman revealing his secret identity to the criminal he's about to send to jail, or Shrek needing to have Batman's identity explained to him. Now we move on to the best Batman movie of the 20th century. And if you think I'm talking about Batman Forever, you've never been more wrong in your life. No, I'm talking about Mask of the Phantasm, which acts as a sort of prequel to the Batman animated series. What I love about this one is it takes a fresh approach to Batman's origin story by showing Bruce Wayne navigating this situation where his girlfriend's family is at the mercy of the mob. The story is told in non-linear fashion, alternating between a present-day mystery and the origins of Bruce's crime-fighting career. Mix in a surprisingly compelling romance and some heavy emotional impact, and you've got one of the best Batman movies out there. As for the worst scene, I had trouble picking one because the movie is great from start to finish. That means I have to nitpick here, and the scene I'm going with is the police chase. Now, I love this scene for its spectacle and intensity. It opens with Batman locating and fighting the Phantasm, but then the police interrupt, and it kicks off a manhunt that pushes Batman to his limits. He gets bloody, bruised, and concussed, and there's a grounded realism to this scene that you rarely see in Batman stories. Eventually, he gets trapped inside a construction site, and in order to escape, he sends his cape and cowl flying outside as a decoy. The scene then ends with him running from the cops and catching a ride from his girlfriend Andrea. So, what's my problem with this scene? Well, it's the lack of consequences. We see the cops capturing the Batwing early on, then Batman suffers injuries, and finally at the end he runs around with his mask off. These moments make for great tension, but they don't impact the overall story. By this point, his girlfriend already knows he's Batman, so him running around without his mask doesn't lead to any serious payoff. Again, this is not a bad scene, but I wanted more out of it. I wanted more than just a clean escape. Okay, now we move on to Batman Forever. This is a good movie if you like bad movies. It's sloppy, but it does just enough to be watchable. Bruce finds himself facing off against Two-Face while dating a creepy psychologist who's obsessed with Batman, and then Robin appears about midway through, and the Riddler invents a suspicious VR headset that everyone in Gotham buys without thinking twice, and yeah, this movie's a mess. As for its worst scene, we have a lot of mouth-watering options here, but I gotta go with the one where the Riddler and Two-Face break into Wayne Manor. It opens with Two-Face and the Riddler trick-or-treating, then they beat up Alfred before interrupting Bruce's date with his creepy girlfriend. Bruce fights back, which is great, but then he gets shot in the head, which should be a big deal, but it's treated like a paper cut. Meanwhile, the Riddler locates the Batcave and sort of destroys it, but he doesn't do enough damage. Then the movie commits the cardinal sin of giving Two-Face the opportunity to kill Batman before Riddler talks him out of it for a dumb reason.
Ow! Don't kill him. If you kill him, you won't learn nothing.
This is one of those scenes that should have been devastating, but it pulls all its punches. Should we burn down Wayne Manor? No. Should we thoroughly destroy the Batcave? No. Should we kill Batman, aka the only guy who can stop us? Nah, let's just let him live and kidnap his creepy girlfriend so the plot can plot. Now it's time to talk about the other Joe Schumacher film, Batman and Robin. Val Kilmer wanted nothing to do with this movie, so they replaced him with George I Don't Have a Clooney, and they added Mr. Freeze, Mr. Bane, Poison Ivy, and Batgirl to make things more colorful. This is one of those special movies where almost every scene could qualify as the worst scene. The script repeatedly goes out of its way to be terrible, and much like Batman Forever, it loves to pull its punches. We have 3 lethal villains, yet nobody of importance dies, and the worst scene of all is the one with Robin's rubber lips. I talked about it in last week's video, but I only scratched the surface of how bad it actually is. This scene does everything wrong that it possibly could. If I paid you $1 million to write a worse version of this thing, you wouldn't be able to do it. The scene opens with Robin visiting Poison Ivy's lair. He wants info on Freeze's master plan, while she wants to murder Robin with a kiss. They negotiate, and he says he'll kiss her if she reveals Freeze's plan. Then she just flat out tells him the truth. Deception would have made much more sense here, and it could have made for some intriguing conflict, but then again, it's the 90s, it's Batman, who needs good writing? From there, Robin consents to the kiss, and Poison Ivy gives it to him. Game over, right? Wrong. Because our hero remembered to wear his rubber lips. Smart thinking. Except then he brainlessly removes the lips while still in kissing distance. Now, at this moment, Ivy should kiss/kill him right here, or maybe even strangle him with her vines, but instead, she inexplicably pushes him into her pool where he's totally safe. Then she gets up and leaves, and that's when she runs into Batman, who she immediately wraps up in vines. Instead of killing him, and remember, these are the only heroes out there who can stop her and freeze. Instead of killing him, she attempts to leave again, and that's when Batgirl arrives to kick ass and lecture Ivy on feminism. The battle ends with Ivy being knocked into one of her plants, which eats her even though she controls the thing.
Yeah,
now, obviously, this scene has no respect for logic, but what's even worse is that Batgirl is the one who defeats Ivy. This is a problem because leading up to this moment, Batgirl has absolutely no connection to Ivy. They never meet, they never speak, they never see each other. In order for a villain's defeat to mean something, we want the villain to be defeated by someone with a personal connection to them. Throughout the movie, Ivy tempts and manipulates Robin, and their subplot builds and builds toward this confrontation, yet the scene ends with Robin uselessly swimming around while Batgirl delivers the final blow. If you want to include Batgirl here, that's fine, but Robin needs to be the one who finishes off Ivy and their subplot. Alright, it's safe to take off your rubber lips because now we're moving on to some good movies. Batman Begins redeemed the franchise by giving us a Bruce Wayne we actually care about before pitting him against a number of villains, including Scarecrow, Carmine Falcone, Ra's al Ghul, and Joffrey Baratheon. As for the worst scene, it's a two-horse race between the one where Bruce burns down Ra's al Ghul's temple and the one where Bruce lets Ra's die aboard the train. The problem I have with both scenes is that they contradict Bruce's personal code of not killing people. And honestly, I gotta go with the temple scene here because this is the most self-defeating scene in the entire movie.
Yeah.
It opens with Bruce being ordered to execute a criminal, and he declares that he won't allow himself to become a murderer. Then, immediately after this declaration, he kicks off a chain of explosive events that kills every criminal in the building. This is so frustrating because they establish the character's code, then they immediately violate it moments later. Yeah. And I know some people will try to defend it. They'll say, oh, well, he didn't intend to kill anyone, so it's okay. But let's be real here. Bruce knowingly starts a fire in a wooden building full of explosives, and it leads to a bunch of deaths. This is the wrong way to handle it. And it's a sad case of a script prioritizing spectacle over character, and it makes Bruce look like a hypocrite during a major moment. Now it's time for The Dark Knight. This might be my all-time favorite movie, but I will admit that it has its issues, especially in the middle when the plot gets all convoluted and everyone's playing 5D chess and Gordon fakes his death and it cheaply manipulates the audience. And again, the movie is not perfect, it definitely has some big picture issues. But as far as picking the worst scene, it's tricky because the scenes themselves are great. Like, Gordon's fake death is probably the worst part of the movie, but that scene isn't the problem. It's the overall idea of the fake death that's the problem. Now, as for the worst scene, I gotta go with the Hong Kong kidnapping here. If you remember, Mr. Lau is the guy who launders money for the Gotham mob, and he calculates his way out of the country to avoid legal consequences. This prompts Batman to follow him and plan a high-stakes kidnapping. Our hero has about 2 minutes to infiltrate Lau's building, capture the man, and escape via a military skyhook. It's a clever plan, but unfortunately it's too clever. There are no setbacks, there's no drama, no conflict. Batman simply goes through the motions, and the movie's soundtrack fools you into thinking the scene is more exciting than it really is. Typically, when we have a scene like this, we want the hero to struggle. We want the plan to go sideways so we can see how the hero reacts and how he improvises in order to succeed. But here, Batman faces no meaningful challenge, and the scene feels flat beneath all the visual spectacle. Next up, we have Dark Knight Rises. You have to excuse me, I get the two mixed up because the internet likes to pretend that Rises is this irredeemable mess, but I couldn't disagree more. Now, is the film heavily flawed? Yes, absolutely, and I've picked it apart on the channel several times before. But Rises also delivers a compelling redemption story while packing some incredibly emotional moments. The highs are ridiculously high in this one, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't love this movie. Anyway, the worst scene is without a doubt Bane's death scene. This comes after Batman defeats Bane in hand-to-hand combat, and Miranda reveals herself to be Talia al Ghul. She then demotes Bane to the role of backup quarterback, and Bane is left to babysit Batman while Talia heads out to nuke Gotham. Before she leaves, she orders Bane to keep Batman alive until the bomb goes off. Then we get the worst scene. Once Batman and Bane are alone, Bane declares that he has to kill Batman now. Not only is there absolutely no reason for this, but earlier in the movie, Bane explicitly said that he wanted Bruce to witness the destruction of his city. So now Bane is pulling a complete 180, and worse yet, Batman makes no attempt to save himself. But that's okay, because Catwoman somehow arrives on the Batbike without making any noise, and she kills Bane with a missile. The movie's main villain dies a comedic death, and Catwoman cracks a joke to further disrespect the character. Now we move on to, oh god, no, don't do this to me, please. Anything but Batman vs. Superman. Please, any movie at all. I'll talk about The Notebook if I have to. Anything to spare me from BVS. I can't do this, guys. I've suffered enough. I can't afford another trip to the hospital. Please just... Alright, fine. It is a Batman movie. I did sign up for this, so I'll just have to make this quick. Now, we all know what the worst scene is. It's the leading cause of brain damage in the civilized world, and of course the one I'm talking about is the Martha scene.
Why did you say
This
that
comes
name?
right after Batman defeats Superman in their big battle. Before attempting to finish off his superhuman enemy, Batman conveniently starts rambling about his parents, then he grabs his kryptonite spear and prepares to deliver the killing blow. That's when Superman conveniently blurts out that Batman is letting Lex Luthor kill Martha. You know, Martha. Not my mom or Martha Kent, just Martha. As if Batman is supposed to know exactly who he's talking about. And of course, Batman doesn't know, but his own mother was named Martha, and that causes him to hesitate long enough for Lois Lane to report the news that Superman's mother is also Martha. Somehow, this convinces Batman to rethink his heated motivations for killing Superman, and the two team up shortly after. I still don't understand how a professional film studio created a movie called Batman vs. Superman, a movie where two iconic characters fight to the death, only for the conflict to be resolved by the fact that their mothers share the same first name. Like, who thought of this? Who let this happen? How is this legal? Alright, now that the pain and suffering is over, let's move on to something fun. The Lego Batman movie is a blast. It's one of those movies that rewards you for being a fan of the franchise it pokes fun at, and the more familiar you are with Batman, the more you get out of this one. I normally don't like comedies because I don't have a soul, but I love this movie because it takes a fresh approach to the character while sprinkling in all sorts of references for die-hard fans. Now, picking the worst scene here is tough. Not just because this is a comedy and humor is subjective, but also because it's a fun, breezy movie. There's no particular scene that leaps out at me as unbearable, so I decided to go with the prison release scene. Basically what happens is Batman infiltrates Arkham Asylum so he can send the Joker to the Phantom Zone. The police get angry at Batman and they trap him and Robin in Arkham together. From there, our heroes have a chat and start beatboxing until Barbara Gordon releases them so everybody can save Gotham. And this is by no means a terrible scene, but the reason why I consider it the worst one is because it's a blown opportunity. We have this cocky, self-absorbed version of Batman stuck in Arkham, and a prison escape scene could have been hilarious, especially when you mix in Robin and all the supervillains trapped in there with them. But instead of a fun escape, all we get are a couple of forgettable conversations before Batman and his team walk out the door. Finally, we have the Batman. For the most part, I love this movie. The first 2 hours and 15 minutes are excellent, but then once the Riddler gets captured, the movie punches itself in the face for the rest of its runtime. I've talked about this issue on the channel before. I just don't like how they take this gritty, grounded detective story and overextend it for the sake of cramming in a bunch of spectacle. The story loses its identity in those last 45 minutes, and it's a shame because this is the first live-action film that truly explores Batman as a detective. Anyway, the worst scene is at the end when Batman battles the Riddler's henchmen. By this point, the city has been flooded, and people have taken refuge inside Gotham Square Garden. That's where the Riddler's goons are waiting with their rifles, and they attempt to kill the newly elected mayor. Batman then arrives in dramatic fashion and fights the gang until he's eventually outmatched and hanging on for his life. One of the goons prepares to kill him with a shotgun, and the moment is dragged out in cliched fashion. Meanwhile, Batman doesn't do anything to protect himself, probably because he read the script and he knows Catwoman's going to save him right before the shotgun goes off. Where have I seen this before? Next thing we know, Catwoman is kissing him and telling him it's over, but of course this movie never wants to be over, so another goon attacks, and then Batman injects himself with adrenaline. That sends him into rage mode, and he nearly kills the guy before Gordon arrives to remind Batman that murder would ruin his character arc. The goon then declares himself to be Vengeance, and Batman realizes how dangerous that idea can be. This scene has many problems. First, I don't like the fact that the real Riddler is absent. And yes, I understand that they're trying to show that the Riddler's ideas and his henchmen can be just as dangerous as the big bad himself, but without the main villain present, the big fight feels like more of a side mission. Then we have Adrenaline Ex Machina, we have Catwoman and Gordon with convenient back-to-back saves, and we have the cliched, let me hesitate before killing the hero routine. Now, to be fair, one thing I do love about this scene is the moment where the henchman says the line, "I'm Vengeance." It's a fantastic callback to the earlier moment where Batman beats up one of the Joker's goons, and it hits like a nuke. Batman's reaction is incredible here, and it does a great job driving his arc toward its conclusion. It's just a shame that the rest of the scene falls flat by comparison. So I hope this helps. Question of the day, what do you think are the worst Batman scenes? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of any one of my books and be sure to leave reviews on Amazon.
Very happy.
Story Made Simple is great if you're a writer. It covers the 8 key elements of storytelling, and it does so.
I was very happy that they made Batman like a true detective in that new movie. I appreciate it for that.
In no-nonsense fashion. Also be
Oh, hi there. Hot on the heels of Morbius fever sweeping the nation, I felt the need to revisit superhero Lost Media. This is a topic I covered a while back in my complete Lost Media of DC Comics video, which I admit is an overly ambitious title. Also, the C in DC stands for comics, so that part doesn't make sense either, but I don't know how else to say it. Anyways, without further ado, here are a few pieces of superhero Lost Media that deserve more attention, starting with Spider-Man's Lost PSAs. In 1990, the Learning Company distributed a series of animated educational VHS tapes called the Spider-Man Safety Series. The tapes were made by Coronet/MTI Films and Video with the purpose of tackling serious social issues that children might be facing and how to deal with them. The tapes were distributed to elementary schools across the United States, complete with lesson plans to guide teachers in how to present the material. Because the Spider-Man Safety Series was exclusively sold to schools, there was no way for the general public to own a copy, and in the years since their release, have never made their way online, with the exception of one. The single surviving tape, titled Don't Hide Abuse, was saved by the YouTube channel Mindless Shelf Indulgence, who found the tape while working at a public library, taking it home when he found it was going to be discarded with a pile of other VHS tapes, as the library was moving to DVD and Blu-ray formats. 15 years later, Mindless Shelf Indulgence realized that the tape could not be found anywhere, and promptly posted it to YouTube. This 11-minute short, targeted towards second graders, addresses physical abuse. In the tape, a little girl named Maria is being abused by her father. Her friends and classmates see her bruises and ask Spider-Man for help, who convinces Maria to tell a trusted adult. Obviously, this is a very serious topic. Children absolutely need to know that this is not okay and have access to help. But the tape has that typical old school PSA vibe where they mean well, but it just comes off as funny or even has disturbing implications. Like there's a scene where Spider-Man sees Maria being hit and doesn't intervene. I know that's not the point, but to see Spider-Man just let it happen is so messed up. Over the years, other tapes were identified through old library archives. A tape titled Smart Kids Play It Safe, and another one called What to Do About Drugs, but no library still had a copy. Lost Media Wiki user Rogue Knight contacted the publisher, and they actually got back to him, giving the search some more information. The series was acquired by Fox and licensed back to the Learning Company. The contract was to expire in 2005, but all underlying rights lie with Marvel. They also informed Rogue Knight of the title of a 4th and final tape, Where Do You Go for Help? The publisher said they would let him know if they found anything, but they have over 6,000 tapes in their collection. They suggested contacting Fox. While making this video, I contacted the publishers, and they said they don't have the tapes. I reached out to Marvel, I haven't heard anything back, and I'm not really getting my hopes up. There are no screenshots or covers for the 3 missing tapes, but we have a full synopsis of Smart Kids Play It Safe and a brief description of what to do about drugs. In this video, Spider-Man invites viewers to follow his friends, EJ, Timmy, Maria, and Jason, on their way home from elementary school and discover how they handle the secret safety tests he has arranged. Spider-Man's friends prove they are responsible for following the 7 safety rules he's taught them. Spider-Man Smart Kids Play It Safe is a children's safety guide about walking home from school and being home alone. The program is fully animated with a multicultural cast of characters. When Timmy, an elementary school student, is offered drugs by 2 very persuasive older boys, his friends enlist the help of Spider-Man to teach him about drugs and making good decisions. Our best lead on the most elusive tape of them all, Where Do You Go for Help?, is that at one point it was in the possession of a public library in New York State. There are no plans for a re-release, and it seems the only hope of recovering these lost tapes is if someone comes forward with more.
Whether 'tis nobler to join this jazzy group or group off, to evade the slings and arrows of Branduch.
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
The first live-action Captain America. The Marvel Superheroes was a 1966 animated TV series airing on various stations across North America. The show is produced by Grant Ray Lawrence Animation, who also produced the 1967 animated Spider-Man series, best known for the iconic Spider-Man theme song that's still used by Disney today, and of course, the long-running meme. The Marvel Superheroes initially ran as its own 30-minute program made up of 3 7-minute segments, but was eventually broken up, and segments were used as filler in children's TV programs. The show featured 5 Marvel Avengers: Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and Namor. Most episodes were solo adventures following just one character, but there were occasionally episodes that featured the whole squad and other Marvel characters like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Bucky, Black Widow, Loki, and Hawkeye. 65 full episodes were produced, made up of 195 segments, airing from September to December of 1966. The show's stories were ripped directly from the Silver Age comics of Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and Don Heck, literally. To save animation costs, comic panels were directly scanned and then lightly animated. Wow. But every single one of these lightly animated episodes of the Marvel Superheroes are easy to find today. But when broadcasting on WNAC TV in Boston, Massachusetts, the station wanted to do something different. In between animated segments, WNAC included live action segments hosted by actor Arthur Pierce, dressed as Captain America, which by all accounts is the character's very first live-action appearance. These live-action skits, exclusive to the Boston area, were also known to include the likes of Doctor Doom, the Hulk, and even Cap's reunion with Bucky, but based on Arthur Pierce's own recollection, it did not follow the Winter Soldier storyline. The only known piece of Arthur Pierce's live-action segments come from a low-quality bootlegged recording by a viewer who recorded them with a black and white Super 8 camera and a reel-to-reel tape recorder near the TV's speaker, and it's not clear how many of these live-action segments were made. But there is one very interesting aspect to these local live-action skits. It's so strange, I really have a hard time believing it. These skits were not off-the-cuff improvisations by a local TV host like I expected, but were scripted by Superman co-creator Jerry Siegel. You heard that right. The co-creator of the most iconic DC superhero played a hand in this Marvel TV program. Wow. The claim is sourced from a 2010 book, Age of TV Heroes, that states Pierce and Siegel were friends. And Siegel did briefly work for Marvel in the 60s, so this isn't completely unheard of, but it would be one of the only times Siegel would ever work on a TV show. Because of shady business dealings by the station's parent company, RKO General, WNAC Boston signed off at 1 a.m. on May 22nd, 1982. It's unclear what became of the film reels containing the first live-action performance of Captain America. Sam Raimi's lost Spidey scenes. Like with every movie, there are things that are filmed that we will never see. Most of these are just outtakes or a different take of the same scene, but on occasion, there will be extended takes or even complete scenes that were filmed but are never released to the public. Now, maybe the studio holds on to every piece of film they shoot, but I would wager that these extraneous scenes that don't even make it to a home media release are probably discarded. And 20 years later, I fear the same may have happened to one of the greatest superhero trilogies of all time, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And just for the record, I love Spider-Man 3. The dance scene is supposed to be cringe. It's what Peter Parker thinks being cool looks like. Fight me.
Now take on this. I get it.
A good amount of deleted scenes were included on the trilogy's DVD releases. Even a version of Spider-Man 2 called Spider-Man 2.1 with new, alternate, and extended scenes. But others have yet to be seen by the public. Some of these lost, deleted, and extended scenes have been found in some really strange ways.
I agree with that. It's supposed to be what Peter thinks is cool. you know, and Tobey Maguire's version is definitely the really nerdy weirdo. I do have criticisms about the Sam Raimi trilogy, but as the criticisms I do have of it, I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I did not absolutely lose my fucking mind when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man came through that portal in, what was it, No Way Home? Yeah, when the three movie Spideys all came together. Yeah, I absolutely did lose my mind when he showed up.
In October 2015, the YouTube channel Chris the Geek 517 uploaded a short clip from Spider-Man 2 that comes from an airing of the movie on FX in the 2000s. The scene doesn't really add much, it just shows Peter chaining up his bike to a pole before going into his apartment. No idea why only the TV version includes this scene. In August 2020, a Twitter user posted another unseen clip from Spider-Man 2 that the user claims they got from stock footage on Sony's website. The clip is an extended version of the early pizza delivery scene.
Pizza time.
That same month, the YouTube channel EPH00 posted more clips, the first being scenes of the cut character Dr. Wallace. This now partially found scene shows the remnants of a deleted subplot where Sandman would pay/intimidate Dr. Wallace into making a cure for his daughter's illness. EPH00 also posted 2 very short clips that hint at an alternate death scene of Venom. This alternate version of Spider-Man defeating Venom was used in the movie's novelization, and though it appears to have been filmed, and we could even see some of the CGI work was done in the film's Comic-Con trailer, the alternate scene would have had the symbiote consuming Eddie Brock, leaving a skeleton, and Spider-Man finishing off the symbiote with a sonic attack. Apparently, the scene was shown to test audiences who didn't like the symbiote consuming Brock, and the scene was redone into what we got in the final film. Despite extended cuts being released, the trilogy's continued popularity, and the bits and pieces we have recovered, there are still a good number of scenes that remain elusive. I'll link to the Lost Media wiki page on the trilogy's lost deleted scenes if you want a full, but possibly incomplete list of the scenes. Marlon Brando's final performance. Big Bug Man is a mysterious animated superhero movie scheduled for a release in 2006 before being pushed back to 2007, then to 2008, and never being heard from again, but never officially cancelled. It's not clear when the movie's production began, but we know it was well into development by mid-2004 because the film would be the very last project worked on by Marlon Brando and his only animated role. Brando, best known for his iconic performance as Vito Corleone in The Godfather, was originally asked to play the character Nicholas Dunderbeck, but thought it would be more fun to play the old woman, Mrs. Sauer. By this time in his life, Brando was on oxygen for 6 hours a day, so all of his lines were recorded for Big Bug Man in his own home in a single day. He got so into the role that he dressed as the character, wearing a blonde wig, dress, white gloves, and full makeup while recording his lines. He said it was the most fun he had since playing Julius Caesar. His lines were recorded on June 10th, 2004, and he passed away.
Oh, damn, did you have to show us a pic of him as a young man? Damn, he was sexy.
Just a few weeks later on July 1st. Alongside Brando was Brendan Fraser, who played the lead, Howard Kind, a worker at a candy factory who's bitten by bugs, becoming the superhero, Big Bug Man. Believe it or not, this is an original character. They came up with this high-concept brainbuster all on their own. The movie was directed by Bob Benditson, with Peter Shin as animation director and Maurice Tobias as voice director, all of whom had only worked on TV until this point, which could be a possible reason for the film's tumultuous development. The movie was traditionally animated and cost about $20 million to make. It also starred Michael Madsen, best known for his role as Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs, but we don't know what character he played in Big Bug Man. Despite numerous release dates being set, not a single second of this film has been released. No teaser or trailer of any kind. All we have are storyboards, the movie's poster, and audio snippets of Brando's performance as Mrs. Sauer that were reported on by news stations. There's never been any reason given as to why the film remains unreleased, but the most obvious reason is that it was canceled because Brando died. But this is pretty flawed. Mainly that the movie wasn't canceled immediately after Brando's death, just continuously pushed back. Maybe the plot changed over development and they needed more lines from Brando to make it work, but this also doesn't completely make sense. His character, Mrs. Sauer, only had 3 scenes. With such a big name in the movie, I'm sure they could have worked with the voice clips they had. To me, it almost seems disrespectful that they didn't release the film after Brando was so excited to voice the character. And even if his performance performance wasn't flawless. No one's gonna hold it against him. Dude was 80 and on his deathbed. By some accounts, the movie never made it past the storyboard phase, meaning we may never hear Marlon Brando's final performance. The Josh Trank cut. Studios have a long history of butchering their superhero movies against the director's wishes. Richard Donner was famously fired from Superman 2 with 75% of the film complete, and of course Warner Brothers kept the tradition alive by massacring the original release of the Justice League. But these both have a happy ending. In both cases, the directors were allowed to return to restore their films, with Superman 2 the Richard Donner cut and the Snyder cut. But in the case of 2015's Fantastic Four, it's never had its happy ending. Stylized as fan-four-stick, this film might be the single worst superhero movie of all time. At least something terrible like Catwoman is fun to laugh at, but Fan4Stick is just boring, sporting a scathing 9% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 27 out of 100 on Metacritic. Basically, the studio wasn't happy with the original cut, director Josh Trank turned in and mandated, rushed, ill-planned reshoots. In one of the most obvious cases, you can see Sue Storm's hair change within the same scene. It's kind of hard to even describe, but the movie has no second act. They spend an hour on the characters getting their powers, and then there's a final battle. And where previous Fantastic Four films were maybe too light in tone, the reboot overcorrected, making the tone way too dark, and ditching much of the family dynamic that made the comics so compelling. But unlike in the cases of Superman 2 and the Justice League, where the studio is largely to blame, director Josh Trank isn't completely innocent in this whole mess. The movie was originally written by Jeremy Slater with a more comic-accurate tone, but as the film progressed and Fox gave Josh Trank notes on the script, he just never told Slater and took it upon himself to rewrite parts of the movie. According to Slater, I never saw 95% of those notes. Slater would leave the film, and Simon Kinberg was brought on to help write. This, combined with Trank's erratic, sometimes abusive behavior on set, and Fox's dissatisfaction with his first cut of the film, he was locked out of the editing room, losing final edit privileges. Steven Rivkin was brought on to re-edit the film, and in Trank's words, Rivkin ultimately chose different takes for every single scene of the movie, and became the de facto director. But as far as Trank's version of the film, by the time he delivered his first cut, the ending hadn't been finalized, still going through visual effects. So the studio cobbled together an ending partially based on Jeremy Slater's script, and new sections were filmed, sometimes being written on the day of reshoots. Trank's planned cut of the film was a little over 2 hours versus the final hour and 40-minute version. This final cut removed a good number of scenes that were shown off in the trailer and marketing. According to Trank, because he still needed to shoot a few scenes and a few visual effects were still left unfinished, this combined with the movie's commercial failure and a reboot coming up by Marvel, it is very unlikely that a director's cut will ever materialize. There are 5 deleted scenes that we know from Trank's vision. An action set piece where the Thing dives from a plane attacking a terrorist camp cut for budget issues. Dialogue between Reed Richard and Dr. Doom where Doom is strapped to a table. A scene of Johnny fixing a car meant to show he's an effective mechanic. A cut scene of Johnny lighting up after learning about Doom's rampage. And shots of Ben Grimm playing baseball. Given how god-awful this movie was, I'd be interested in seeing Trank's vision, but I have a hard time imagining anything could salvage this mess. But I also can't see it being much worse.
Oh shit.
The lost English dub of the first superhero. It's hard to pinpoint who the first superhero is. There's an argument to be made for the ancient Mesopotamian character Gilgamesh, or the Greek gods. I've even seen some arguments that Jesus Christ was the first. But I think there's a common understanding that the first modern superhero is Superman. But even this isn't entirely correct. Before the creators of Superman had even met on the other side of the world in 1931, Japanese teenager Taiko Nagamatsu and 25-year-old Suzuki Ichiro created the first modern superhero, Ogon Bat, named after the Golden Bat cigarette brand, in hopes of getting a sponsor. They didn't. Inspired by Japanese mythology, Ogon Bat is a golden skeleton in a kind of swashbuckling Dracula getup sent from ancient Atlantis to fight evil. He has an evil counterpart, Kurayami Bat, and an arch-enemy, Dr. Erich Nazo, the leader of a crime syndicate, who of course wants world domination. The character was first shown to the public in a kamashibai, a kind of storyteller street performance with pictures. And despite such humble beginnings, the character remained popular enough to survive both the decline of kamashibai and post-war Japan. The character would eventually get his own films, manga, and an anime. In 1967, Yomiuri TV produced an anime adaptation of Ogon Bat, which was quickly localized for a Western audience under the name Phantoma Phantom Man, Warrior of Justice. Man, that's a rough name. The show was slated for an English release in North America and Australia, but for some reason, it only made its way to Australia, airing from 1968 to 1972. For decades, it was thought the existence of this English dub was a myth, but it was finally proven real in 2012 when TV Nostalgia posted a 19-second, low-quality recording of the dub to YouTube, vindicating Australian viewers who swore it was real. But to this day, now a full decade after TV Nostalgia's upload, this single clip is all that has ever surfaced from the English language dub of Phantoma Phantom Man. Because of how old the series is, it seems very unlikely the dub will ever be officially released, and the original reels were likely sent back to Japan or wiped. But it is theorized that the Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese dubs are based on the English language dubs, since they all use the English character names, implying that there were additional copies of the English dub sent to other countries, increasing the still very small chance that the English dub may still be found. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, you might like my video on the Lost Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man vs. Kraven the Hunter. This video was voted on by my Patreon supporters. If you want to join me on Patreon, you can hit up the link on screen. And shout out to my top tier Patreon supporters, the glumpiest of glumps, Miss Dana, MD the Dude, and Odessa Honeycrisp. Thank you. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.
Scarecrow thinks unmasking you took away our hope. No way. You just showed us why we shouldn't give up.
I don't know what to say, Batman. That's big news. I guess now we know.
Where's his ears? It's Man-Man. It's not Batman, it's Man-Man.
Know where the money for the car comes from.
It's been a long night, Batman. Sure didn't think we'd end up here. Gonna be hard for things to go back to normal after this. I won't forget what you did for me, Mr. Wayne. They'd be picking itty-bitty pieces of me out of the grill of that car if it wasn't for you. It's been a long night, Batman. Sure didn't think we'd end up here.
Thank God you're here.
Back to normal after this.
You risked your own life to save us. I can't thank you enough, Batman. I know not everyone was that lucky. Thank God you're here.
How did you do it, Batman? Scarecrow pumped you full of that stuff and you're still standing. And that kind of dosage would have put anyone else on the ground. You've got an antidote, right? I wouldn't mind having some if you've got any to spare. Having Scarecrow in the next room is kind of freaking me out. Good to hear Gordon's okay. Bet that was quite a shock for him, finding out who you are. Pretty awesome when you were just laughing in Scarecrow's face. No way I could have been that brave.
Hang on. Okay, I thought it was gonna be cutscenes, not gameplay. Alright, hold on.
Right to Hell Route 666. Right to Hell Retribution is widely considered one of the worst games ever made, with god-awful gameplay and glitches that make it basically unplayable. The game was planned to start a franchise, with spin-offs being announced shortly before its launch. One of these was titled Right to Hell Route 666, a comic book stylized top-down brawler in which the player fights other biker gangs. But due to the abysmal reception of Retribution, Route 666 was cancelled. The discovery of Route 666 was revealed by the user Dusk the Crow on the Media Oasis Discord community. The build was dated April 2013, a few months before the first game's release. The developers apparently had a lot of faith in Retribution. Videos and screenshots for Route 666 was shared on the Hidden Palace, and at least it seems more technically competent than the original. Dinosaurs Against Cosmic Men. Released in 1969, Dinosaurs Against Cosmic Men is a rare Taiwanese tokusatsu film directed by Lee Chuan, known for later working on the Super Riders trilogy. The movie was one of the earliest Taiwan-Japan productions, and served as a precursor to the country's tokusatsu boom in the late 1970s. Despite being exported to several Asian countries, The film became nearly impossible to find over the years, with only a few posters proving its existence. An Indonesian Betamax tape titled King of the Dinosaurs surfaced in the 1980s, containing a unique English dub produced specifically for that country. For years, this Betamax release remained the only known copy, but it had never been digitized. That changed in July 2025, when video collector Budi Prestigio digitized the tape and uploaded it to the Internet Archive. The dub itself was produced in Indonesia, not for an official export, making the original Mandarin audio for Dinosaurs Against Cosmic Men still lost. SpongeBob 4D pre-show video. In 2003, the motion simulator ride SpongeBob SquarePants 4D debuted at several Paramount theme parks. Based on the show we all know and love, the ride follows SpongeBob on a chaotic quest to find an on-the-run pickle while teaching guests how to assemble a Krabby Patty. To entertain guests in line, a pre-show video played on loop, showing SpongeBob reflecting on memories from the show and celebrating the excitement of waiting in line. For years, this pre-show video was lost media, with only low-quality clips and screenshots surviving. Thankfully, on July 5th, 2025, the Twitter account Lost Media Busters tweeted about the lost pre-show, prompting a reply from a different user named greenthing_CTR. They revealed they had downloaded the full pre-show years ago from an old YouTube upload before it was taken down. The next day, they sent the footage to the Lost Media Busters, who subsequently made it available on their YouTube account. Picasso Print Retrospective Exhibition Commercial. It's weird shit like this that makes me interested in lost media. In October 2011, a Japanese user uploaded a strange commercial to YouTube. It was an ad for the hair product brand Danto, but what caught viewers off guard was the 2-second clip that played immediately after it ended. It showed a digitized black and white image of a man's distorted face staring into the camera.
Need to play Ride to Hell someday? Oh man, good luck with that. It is a very terrible game.
The face was incredibly unnerving, so much so that it sparked widespread speculation across Japanese message boards. Some believed it was a horror program or a cursed broadcast, while others pointed out that the image looked like a photo of Pablo Picasso. Eventually, in July 2025, YouTuber Kumaman identified the clip as part of a commercial for the Picasso Print Retrospective Exhibition, a real event during the 1980s. The full commercial was then uploaded that month. When You Wish Upon a Weinstein early draft. When You Wish Upon a Weinstein is the classic episode of Family Guy, in which Peter tries to convert his son into Judaism for financial reasons. But what many fans don't know is that there's an earlier draft of the episode's script. Under the production code 2ACX02, this draft featured entirely different scenes and jokes, and even a scrapped musical number. This early script was mentioned in passing through DVD commentary and interviews with Seth MacFarlane. In 2020, Twitter user Classic Swim revealed that they owned a copy of the script. They shared images of the script online, which contained the majority of the draft. The following month, the script was converted into a PDF and shared through Google Drive, though the file has since been deleted. In 2024, a user named Random Viewer Guide revealed that he had a copy of the script and planned to release it in the future. And in July of this year, he finally uploaded it to the Internet Archive. Fist of the North Star uncensored footage. Fist of the North Star is a Japanese film based on the anime manga of the same name, starring Kenshiro, a martial artist who fights enemies in a post-apocalyptic world. The theatrical release of the film featured heavy violence, something which the manga was known for. Apparently, the animators even studied human anatomy to get the gory parts of the film as accurate as possible. Because of that, home video releases were heavily censored, and the original uncensored version of the film was deemed lost, surviving only in part of the Italian VHS release. Then, out of nowhere, on July 13th, 2025, the anime preservation group Kaneko Video randomly shadow dropped all of the uncensored footage in a tweet. In their Internet Archive post of the footage, they explained that the scenes were discovered attached to a 35mm print of the censored version, and they suggest that theaters were told to physically splice the scenes from their copies and replace them with the edited ones. They also note that it's highly unlikely that these scenes would ever be re-released officially. Peg plus Cat pilots. Among the many shows with lost pilots being found this year is Peg Plus Cats, a 2013 children's educational cartoon made by the Fred Rogers Company. The show is about a girl named Peg and her cat, who taught kids about math. 2 years prior, in 2011, a pitch pilot for the series was made, but it has long been lost media since. Only snippets were available on different animation reels from people who worked on the show, but the full pilot was never made available. Then in 2025, the pilot was found hiding in plain sight on series producer Jaslyn Dema's Vimeo account, where it had been quietly uploaded a year prior. I'm With Stupid. I'm With Stupid was an unsold American game show that had a pilot filmed in 2003. That's right, 2025 is indeed the year of lost pilots. Anyways, the pilot was hosted by Graham Norton and features pairs of contestants with deliberately foolish partners trying to complete simple challenges. After the pilot was taped at Tribune Studios, it failed to secure a network pickup and was shelved, effectively becoming lost media. For years, the pilot was incredibly obscure, and only a brief clip was available online. In 2025, a full recording of the pilot surfaced online, courtesy of the Game Show Vault, a YouTube channel known for uploading many pilots to obscure game shows throughout the years. Exploring Frogs. Exploring Frogs is an early 2000s educational game about frogs. Who would have guessed? However, there was actually a mini search for this game, as hardly any information could be found, and it was incredibly obscure. Basically, it started in 2023, when a Discord user inquired about the game in the Lost Media Wiki Discord server. Quote, I played this early 2000s computer game as a kid, but I've never been able to locate any media from the actual gameplay, despite knowing the name. My disc is damaged beyond use, unfortunately. But I have this photo of the disc. It is called Exploring Frogs. Eventually, users were able to find a listing for the game from Walmart Canada, but the requester was inactive. It was even unclear if the game could run at all after 20 years. Thankfully, in 2025, a copy was eventually secured by Discord user TrovGCM, who made it available online. Eddie Retractorhead. Eddie Retractorhead was a series of 1-minute animated shorts that aired on Nickelodeon UK in 2008. Produced by Cosgrove Hall, best known for classic cartoons like Danger Mouse, the shorts featured a blob of mucus named Eddie, and his other blob friend named Blam Blob. After their brief broadcast run, the Eddie Retractorhead episodes were never officially released on home media or online, though efforts to recover the series spanned across several years. The episodes, trailer, Space Day, and Exploditus were all that remained for some years. Then in 2019, the episodes House and Speed Photo were uploaded online by editor Tracy Cleland as part of her resume. By the tail end of July, all the episodes in high quality were suddenly online thanks to a person named Jordan Wright, who worked on the show. Wright acquired these episodes courtesy of show director Gene Flynn. Hey guys, Blue on George here, and if you enjoyed this video, I have a Spotify page now, which is super cool, and you can listen to a lot of my videos there. It's super cool seeing like comments on some of the older videos, especially the ones that have been like copied and marked for kids, because they removed the comments. So it's cool seeing people, you know, re-comment on those videos in a different kind of way. But yeah, I'll leave a link to the Spotify page down below, and on with the video. Meet the Sniper Magnum Force Remix. As part of their promotional campaign for Team Fortress 2, Valve released a video titled Meet the Sniper in 2008. The short featured the sniper character as they explained the joys, downsides, and philosophies of sniping. The video contains a catchy tune in the background, later revealed to be a remix of the main theme for the 1973 action thriller film Magnum Force. Due to copyright concerns, a full, clean recording of the remix has never been released. It wasn't in the game, on any YouTube video, or even on Valve's official album containing music from Team Fortress 2. Throughout the years, many have attempted to recreate the song to varying degrees of accuracy. Suddenly, in August of this year, repositories for Team Fortress 2 and Source Filmmaker were leaked by an anonymous user. The leak supposedly originated from the Valve Cut Content Discord server, and within it was a clean recording of the Magnum Force remix. The Muppets Present Pitch Video. The Muppets Present was the working title for a proposed revival of The Muppet Show in the early 2000s. It's a bit unclear why the show was never picked up, but the cancellation of another Muppet show, Muppets Tonight, may have played a part. Regardless, a pitch video was produced to propose the show to networks. According to the Muppet Wiki, Pepe would have boasted that this new show was edgy, but Kermit protested, claiming that the Muppets don't say ass.
Hip and edgy?
See, I show you that.
Alright.
The new Muppet Show is going to kiss ass, okay?
Pepe, we don't say that word.
Which word?
Ass.
Just say ass.
Although the show was never made, the script for the first episode was posted online. Later in 2025, a YouTube channel called A Bagel retrieved the pitch video from Chris Stolz, who ran the Muppet Stuff blog. A Bagel digitized the footage and made it available online. He even posted an uncompressed version on the Internet Archive. And yeah, it's definitely a bit out there. Corpse Party New Chapter. Corpse Party is a 1996 Japanese survival horror game starring a group of students who must find their way out of an abandoned, haunted school. Corpse Party New Chapter is a mobile remake of the original, but with new chapters, characters, and enhanced visuals. It was released in 2006, but as years passed and Japan's old cell phone network shut down, New Chapter became unplayable and lost. Not only that, but only 4 of the 5 planned chapters were ever released. In 2025, members of the Kitai Wiki Discord made a shocking discovery. A user named Yuku dumped several games from vintage phones, and among them were the first 4 chapters of Corpse Party New Chapter. To my understanding, the 5th chapter is still lost, but since it was never released, it's like super lost. Should I Stay or Should I Go? Flashlight Brown cover. In 2003, Canadian punk band Flashlight Brown recorded a cover of The Clash's Should I Stay or Should I Go for the Rugrats Go Wild movie soundtrack. However, the cover was replaced by the original Clash version, and the band's own song, Ready to Roll, appears in the film as well. Flashlight Brown briefly hosted the cover on a hidden page on their website, but then the site went offline and the track became lost media. In 2025, a Lost Media Wiki user discovered that someone using the handle Sonic Smoker, great name by the way, had shared the song on Soulseek, a peer-to-peer network. To Tell the Truth pilot. To Tell the Truth is a classic American game show first appearing in 1956 and has been rebooted several times throughout the years. Despite its longevity, one episode had lingered in obscurity, an unaired pilot for the 2000 revival. In 1999, Pearson Television filmed a trial episode as it prepared to bring To Tell the Truth back to syndication, with actor John O'Hurley as host. The pilot featured the classic format, celebrity panelists guessing which of the 3 contestants is telling the truth, but updated for the new millennium. Unfortunately, the pilot was never picked up, and the only information about the episode came from an old Google Groups thread by an audience member. Other than a few clips and a photo of the tickets to the episode, nothing else remained for several years. But, as per usual with obscure lost pilots to game shows, good old The Game Show Vault uploaded a studio master of the pilot to YouTube. The Aquabats Aqua Battle. The Aquabats Super Show is something I genuinely had no idea existed. Granted, it had a fairly short run, from 2012 to 2014, but thanks to a successful Kickstarter campaign, it was revived as a YouTube series. Anyways, the Aquabats Aqua Battle was a Flash-based web game created in 2012 to promote the show. In the game, the comic rock band embark on a side-scrolling beat-em-up adventure matching the campy superhero vibe of their series. The game was hosted on the Hub's website, but after the site went under and Adobe Flash was discontinued, Aqua Battle became unplayable. However, the first of its 3 levels was still playable on a Chinese website of all places. Efforts to recover the game took place, but it wouldn't be until August 2025 when the remaining levels and assets were recovered and added to the Flashpoint Archive, a web game preservation library, making the game playable for the first time in years. Swabbies. Alright guys, September was a pretty dry month for lost media discoveries, but these 2 are pretty fascinating. First up is Swabbies, which was an old Walt Disney special from the 1980s, and the plot is insane. It involves Mickey, Goofy, and Donald joining the Navy to pay rent. For whatever reason, the special's release was halted, despite being storyboarded and recorded. Since then, Swabbies has been deemed lost for 40 years. In 2025, a story reel dated November 7th, 1985 was listed for sale on Julien's Auctions. The buyer is unknown, and how it even began circulating online is also unknown. What is known is that the purchase came with a memo from Van Critters to Katzenberg, who called the cartoon, quote, not funny. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro Thor cutscene. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro is the sequel to the classic 2000s game Spider-Man. The game was intended to be released on September 18th of 2001. However, due to the September 11th attacks, the game was delayed and censored. Notably, the final level, which originally had Spidey fight Electro on top of the World Trade Center. However, there was also a long-standing rumor that another scene was cut from the game, in which Thor shows up after Electro is defeated. Thor doesn't appear in the final version of the game, but there is a joke in which Spidey discovers that the Daily Bugle credited Thor for defeating Electro. There wasn't a whole lot of evidence for this Thor scene, and when the uncensored version of the game was found a few years back, this supposed Thor cutscene was not in the game. The cutscene became something of an urban legend, with some Reddit users claiming to have seen it around the time of the game's final October release. Then on June 3rd, 2023, there was a breakthrough. Discord user SpiderGlider discovered on an old backup of Activision's now defunct Spider-Man game page a file named Spidey_MOV.jpg. It turns out this file was a thumbnail for a video download of the rumored cutscene, confirming its existence. Sadly, however, the video file itself wasn't preserved, and because of how old it was believed that it would be extremely unlikely to reappear. However, against all odds, in September 2025, after reading the Lost Media Wiki article, funny enough, a Reddit user named BobbyFan85 realized that they still had the missing MOV file saved on their old hard drive. They have since posted it onto the Internet Archive, finally solving this decades-old myth.
Alright, we've been going on for a good 3 hours. It's getting kind of late, so I guess I will call it. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me for this Saturday chill stream. Oh. Let's see if there's anybody to raid. Oh, can we raid them? Can we raid him? Let's see. Please tell me we can raid. Haha, we can! We're gonna raid one topic. So, yeah, guys. Join me tomorrow for the Spooky Sunday. Love y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.